It is Wednesday night, and that means it's BRAP time. Got a great show in store for you, for everyone tonight. I can't even talk. It's not like I've been drinking, but I haven't. We got a lot to talk about. We have, well, first of all, we'll give a big shout out to everyone in the live chat. What's up, everyone? To all the fellow gamers in the live chat, thank you for hanging out with us this evening. We got Chief Tommy, who's going into the pseudonym of Tom Mix, Jeff B Gaming, MDHX, and Nate's in the house. And Nate's got the best gaming setup in the Twitters. And then we got Capano 5150. But everyone, please hit that like button if you're new. Subscribe. Hit the bell notification so you're alerted when we go live. But on that note, I do want to welcome the panel here. We got returning guests, somebody who I've known for like 20 years. We met on Xbox Live. And in case you didn't know, he was also an Xbox Live beta tester. We've got my man Lemieux66. What's going on, Lemieux?
Hey guys, how you doing? It's great to be here. There's no other place I'd rather be celebrating 20 years of Xbox than with you guys here tonight.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. We will be talking about the 20 years of Xbox tonight. We'll be talking about that. And, some other topics as well. But I also want to introduce another returning guest, somebody who is no stranger to, inside industry scoops.
Right.
This man is known by, Slow-Mo has coined him as One Bad Insider.
Right.
Because he is.
Don't be starting that shit, man.
But he's also known as One Bad Mother. Somebody I've actually known too. We met right after the end of the Xbox Live beta test when Xbox Live went live. We got my man One Bad Mother with us. What's up, OBM?
What's up, Enrique? Unlike Lemmy, I do want to just be honest. There is other places I'd rather be. Number one would be continuing the nap that I was just taking, and then number two would be playing some Halo. But you know what? I figure there's this 20 years. This kind of thing only comes around once every 20 years. So I think it's going to be fun tonight. Yeah, no, absolutely. And then we have another returning guest. We had this gentleman on a couple weeks ago. We have Game Logic. Game Logic, he was having some issues with Discord. Hopefully we can hear him. Game Logic, have you been? Hopefully Discord's working for you now.
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay now?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we hear you much better. Actually, but Game Logic, I will make a request. If you could turn it up just a little bit more. All right, and then we got we'll get Game Logic back in here as he turns up his mic more. And then we got my man Slow-Mo Backslap, who's being messy already. Says Halo Infinite is greater than Battlefield 2042. What's up, Slow-Mo?
And you missed Call of Duty Vanguard as well. It's better than both of them.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's correct.
It is. Yeah. It's just a truth that I think people need to.
Slow-Mo does bring a lot. He does bring a lot of facts. That's what I do like about Slow-Mo.
Oh my goodness,
he does come with the facts.
But no, I'm doing good, man. I had a good day. It's a busy day, unfortunately. A lot of my family is sick, so I've been kind of like doing.
Sorry to hear that, man.
Yeah, it's all right. It is what it's that time of year. It starts to get cooler, and kids go to school. They come back with all kinds of diseases and viruses and stuff. So you know how it is. It just spreads around the house.
Yeah, no, it definitely does.
All that said, yeah, but all that said, I still found some time to shoot some people in the face today.
That's what I'm talking about. In the face.
In the face.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Game Logic. Yeah, I'm gonna go back to Game Logic real quick. Game Logic, can we do a quick mic check, man?
Yeah, man. Can you guys hear me all right?
Oh yeah, that's perfect. That is perfect. Oh man, dude, Game Logic. I was a little worried that Discord wasn't gonna work for you, man. And I'm glad that we got it figured out, man. Because I can't wait to get to our one topic tonight as it relates to Forza Horizon 5 being snubbed for Game of the Year. We're gonna talk about that and. Game Logic, I think you had some excellent points that you were making today on the Twitters and in my conversation on DM with you. But yeah, always great to have you back on, man. So All right, so let's get. I want to talk about Bobby Kotick. Is that how you pronounce his last name? Did I pronounce that right, Slobo?
I think it's actually
Yes,
Kotick.
so
Kotick?
I've heard it pronounced Bobby Dickhead as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard it don't matter. I heard he's been called worse,
Yeah.
or whatever you call him.
You know,
Yeah, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, just when you think things can't get any worse for Activision, it's getting worse. Slow-mo, I know you wanted to talk about this tonight, and with good reason.
Kind of get into it.
Yeah, just go ahead, man. Go ahead.
I see so much like talk on the timeline about the game of the year and who got snubbed, who didn't get snubbed, who's gonna win, yada yada yada. If y'all was listening to me in the first place, you wouldn't even be shocked. But let me not get into that. Like, I think it's like I'm kind of, I don't know why I'm disappointed. I shouldn't feel disappointed, but like there is a conversation also happening on Twitter and as well as in the overall gaming community, Twitter as well, about the facts that are coming out about the CEO of Activision, and it just seems to me like no one cares about that whatsoever. Like, no one cares that this guy is covered up alleged rapes. Nobody cares that this guy threatened to have his former assistant killed. Nobody cares about any of this stuff. It's just like Halo, not Halo. I was like Forza Horizon 5, like a game that's not even an actual person has been wronged, but not like the people who make these games. You know, I actually saw, her name is Lisette Montgomery. She actually is, I think, the art director for Double Fine. Her game, she's so excited that her game got nominated for Game of the Year. And even she took time out of her day to acknowledge the foolishness that's going on and what happens to women in the gaming industry. And it's like, of course, not a woman, so I can't speak for them. But I think the big problem here is that it's only women within the gaming industry that seems to be like coming together to defend themselves. Everyone else, the men that are up in those positions, are too busy trying to protect their own position instead of doing the right thing. And I think like I'm trying to think of the word, the group that's at Activision, the council, whatever you want to call them. I can't remember their names, but
the board of directors.
Thank you. Board directors. The board directors, like, you know, following in and protecting Bobby Kotick after everything that's come out. If you look at everything that's happened in this timeline, he's fired other executives for less in the past 2 months than what he's being accused of. So, like, how are you justifying you still working there, you still having this position? And I kind of feel like this needs to be one of those cases where, you know how we all got together when Xbox doubled Xbox Live?
Yeah.
We all got together when Sony tried to backtrack on Horizon Forbidden West getting a free upgrade. Like, this is one of those cases where the entire gaming community, the industry, the media, everybody should be in unison and on the same page with this foolishness. Get up out of here. He needs to go. And the whole, we're just gonna just wait for it to die down. We'll just try to figure it out. We'll just you know, continue to use the same stupid PR statements that don't make sense to people who get over it. Like, nah, people just don't need to get over it. So I'm off my soapbox. That's how I feel, man. I just need to be.
The other thing too that came out of the Activision story, if you will, or whatever the hell is happening over there, is that former Blizzard code lead Jen O'Neill just resigned. Says she said she was offered equal contract pay only after resigning. So, right. I mean, it's like basically her and Mike Ibarra had the same job now, and the request for an increase in pay to make it equal was, for whatever reason, denied by Activision at the time, and then after she resigns, then they say, "Oh, well, we'll offer you the equal pay." Right? That just So that came out today as well.
Yeah, but who would take that at that point, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, at that point, yeah. Why would you?
Door, and now you want to offer me what you should have offered me from the very start.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's it's just. I just don't. I don't understand what's going on there. It's a cluster. It really is. It's not a good situation. I mean, it's just, there's the allegations that Kotick or Kotick, whatever the hell his name is, threatened to kill someone, and
it's not an allegation. It's a. So this is this happened 16 years ago. So
but but even then, Activision's like, oh, he was kind of just like, he was like joking more or less.
Yeah, imagine your boss, right? Your boss who's super rich, right? It has all kinds of like influence and resources. In a rage, leaves you a voicemail saying he's going to have you killed, and then and you're supposed to take that as a joke. Why? Like yeah, and then they acknowledged, oh well, it was clearly in poor taste.
Why did this take 16 years to come out? Is my question.
Very, very good question. Why did Bobby hide alleged rapes from his directors from the board in the first place for years?
So I mean, I don't think anything you're saying is like off or wrong. I if you're like asking why people aren't talking, I think it's almost become like background. It's almost become background music, that the fact that there's another thing that comes out, because I know we've talked about it, or at least I have in other podcasts like multiple times, and I think people are like, there's almost become like a fatigue. It's like, oh yeah, of course he's a douchebag, oh he's still there. So I guess the question is like, what does it take? That's probably more the question, is like, is it like, my expectation has been, since this thing started unraveling, eventually the guy is going to be like, I can't, it's hard to imagine the guy continue to live through all this. And the only thing I can think of is like, they're still trying to work out how to get him out of there. I don't know. Like, I don't know what's actually happening there. And maybe they aren't. And but I do think, just in everybody else's defense, I think it is just one of those things where, like, oh, here's another week, another douchebag, another thing you couldn't imagine happening, that happened, and I think it's just got to the point that you almost get numb to stuff, right? Like it's like any other bad news you can see on the news. I think people just get kind of numb to it after a little bit, and it's like I think there's not that many people that are going defending him either. I think it's just like, okay, like, when's this thing going to end? So yeah, I've already been at that point, like where you're talking to now. I was there, when this thing kind of broke, and I said my piece in it, and it's just, I think right now it's just like, the question is like, why does it take so long? And the answer, I don't know the answer to that. I think because I don't know how that shit works behind the scenes, and when somebody has that much power, like, what do you do? Like, how do you overthrow the dude in charge there? So yeah, I think right now, like, based on everything, there's no real excuse that the dude should continue to but I don't know, who knows what's actually happening right now.
I think this thing kind of falls into, and we see this happen all the time, as you mentioned, but publicly, the board of directors in Activision are defending and kind of like protecting Kotick, but I think internally they're looking for an exit strategy out of this, especially if the stock price continues to fall as it has. Now, I know partially the reason of the fall of their stock price is due to Call of Duty Vanguard not living up to sales expectations. Now, that has nothing to do with any of this stuff, because as we know, the vast majority of people who play Call of Duty have no idea who Bobby Kotick is, have never heard about any of these allegations, never heard of any of the issues that are going on internally at Activision or Blizzard. They don't even know what Blizzard is. Right. All they know is Call of Duty come out every year, and I play COD. That's all they know. But the reason why the sales are down isn't because of this. It's because nobody wanted to see another World War II Call of Duty, and this one plays like trash, and no one likes that. So that's why sales are down. And there's ample competition from better shooters with Battlefield 2042 and Halo Infinite multiplayer. So that's partially the reason why they're doing the free weekend coming up, and the game just came out and they're already doing free weekends to try to drum up some excitement for it. But I think the only way Bobby really goes is if no one lets up. Activision employees continue to boycott and continue to go on strike until he's gone. Investors continue to say he's gone, or I'm selling my stock, and that stock price doesn't go back up. Then, as well as Vanguard continues to be the worst selling Call of Duty in 14 years. All that combined will get him out of there. But even then, the dude's going to get a golden parachute. I mean, we've seen this before.
Absolutely, he's gonna get a big time payday.
Right, yeah. They'll pay him millions to go away.
He's not getting a golden parachute. He's getting like a golden jet or something. Yeah,
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, I know, but it's kind of funny that, I mean, not funny, but it is like you're mentioning that, and it's like you say what does it take? It's like he's not even running the business well. I mean, you look at what's happened with like Overwatch and what's happened with Call of Duty and what happened with Destiny. It's like they're not even. It's not even like he's like. The business is running really well under him, and then you got the low morale. You got the all this stuff that's really hurting their brand. Like they don't even want to put the Activision name on things. It's like, can you imagine that? Like you're like the biggest publisher in the world, and now you're trying to hide your name. it's like, what the hell does it take? So yeah, I'm just like watching it on fire, and part of and I don't, for all the workers there, obviously, I feel for them, but I think this is the fact that they're kind of working under a place that's on fire. Like this is probably the best for them in the long run, for it to just keep, to burn a little bit more, I guess. But I would be surprised, to be honest with you. At this point, I'd be very surprised if he makes it to the end of the year.
Yeah, and to your point, Obi, I mean, there's some of the shareholders already asked for his resignation. It's not many. I think it's probably about 1% of the shareholders have asked. But even under other industry leaders now are starting to call this out, like call Activision. Jim Ryan has called out Activision for its timid response, saying he felt disheartened and frankly stunned. I mean, that's pretty big. That's one of Activision's biggest partners in the gaming industry. And Jim Ryan saying like, "Hey guys, like what's?" I'm paraphrasing here, but he's more or less saying, "Guys, like what's going on here? Like this isn't good. This is not a good situation. And you're not handling it correctly, and it's kind of shocking to see this play out. I mean, to your point, Slomo, I think unfortunately, everyone's focused on things that are so trivial in nature that really don't have any impact in anyone's personal life whatsoever, right? What I'm referring to is, the complaining and the crying that I've seen over the Forza Horizon 5 quote unquote snub. I mean, like none of that shit means like it's trivial. Like it doesn't impact anyone in any negative way, but this does, and this is getting no attention. No one's really talking about it. It's just unfortunate. I really feel for the people that have had to endure some of the some of the abuse, if you will, at Activision. Many of them are females, and it just there's the woman that apparently had committed suicide because it was alleged that a photo of her vagina had been passed around the office. I mean, that's crazy. And then the allegation of rape, where that was settled out of court, where somebody was intoxicated at work and raped twice or something. I forget what the allegation was, but and that was reported to the authorities, and then that was settled out of court, if you will. I mean, this shit's crazy.
I mean, somebody needs to face criminal charges at this point. That we all know that money talks, and all these guys are just going to get out of it just because their wallet's fatter than anybody else's.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to say, Lemieux, about. I've always said this. I mean, if you have some affluence in this country, there's there's almost a certain pass that you can get, which is unfortunate. So, Game Logic, I want to kind of get your thoughts on this. Like, what do you think about kind of what's transpired more recently with Activision?
It's a little tough. I think there are some small details, very small details out here at the edges that just maybe should be level set around the discussion of it. But I think those are kind of in the noise. I mean, in general, I agree with you guys. And I mean, this is a person who, I mean, he's only 1 year out from being one of the longest running CEOs in the country. He's been CEO of Activision since 1991. So, I mean, it's definitely obviously time for him to go. I guess one of the things that I routinely get, I don't know if frustrated is the right term, but I'm also a software engineer, also work in the technology industry, and I empathize with the engineers and the employees who work in the gaming industry. There's a lot of times that I don't like. I saw on Twitter, I think as this was going down yesterday, I think one of the software developers on one of the teams, I think at Activision Blizzard, was like, "Hey, don't send me DMs telling me not to leave my company. Like, leaving my company isn't going to make things better." And I'm like, I get that. I understand that. That's a religious crusade, right? At that point where you're deciding to stay, and this goes all the way back to like stuff about Crunch and Anthem and BioWare, right? And all these things that happen. And I'm like, at a certain point, there's some percentage of the 100% spectrum, right, where people make choices, and that's part of the mix, right? So people who are choosing to stay are choosing to live in an environment where they are exposed to that type of thing. And I guess I just take a little bit of an edge off, not for Bobby Kotick, but just kind of in the whole spectrum of the thing where, these are people who are enabled and empowered to have job mobility and to go do something else, right? These aren't janitors working a minimum wage job at a place where it's the only place they can work, right? So, and the reason why I say that is when we go back to what Slow-Mo said is about what does it take to dislodge a person? I'm like, it takes some people leaving, right? It takes some people choosing not to stay, and then it takes an increased volume of people who are speaking out against it. And I'm hoping we're getting some of those things now. But I also want to see a time arrive where the employees who work in the industry, make some other choices that maybe empower them to control some of their own fate, I think I would say.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Logic. I mean, Game Logic. I mean, it's interesting too, that it's something you said that he's, kind of the longest, about to be the longest sitting CEO. So then it makes me think like, this probably isn't something that's new per se, right?
Oh,
Something's probably been ingrained in that culture for some time, right? So it makes you think like, what else don't we know, right? Like what other things have happened that have kind of gone under radar? So I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's going to leave.
You think this is just going to blow over and they'll just weather the storm and then he'll just continue on?
Yeah, I think so.
Doing his annual meeting where he talks about their record profits and how and simultaneously saying we just laid off 1,000 people, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think so. I mean, I hate to say it, but I don't have faith in
humanity.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, yeah. That's it. I mean, I just don't. I don't have faith in humanity. I mean, I hate to say it, but I don't. I mean, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff the last year or so. I don't know.
I do think he's costing him money now, so I think that's the difference.
Maybe, yeah.
If you're just talking about like them doing the right thing for the right thing's sake, then yeah, maybe I wouldn't have faith that that's going to happen. But I think now that he's toxic to the brand, I don't know. I guess I'd be shocked because it's at that point it's costing you money. So what the hell does he have over you? Maybe he's got pictures over all of them. I don't know, but that's at some point it's like when you start costing them money, I think your time is usually short. Before anything else.
Yeah, and that's usually what happens. Is that they don't move until they start to lose money, and then but their public statement will pretend like it's all about whatever that person did, and it's not really about that because you knew about that for years. You knew about it before we knew about it, and then you actually, dug in your heels and protected him when it was still looking like his game plan to make money is still sound. But now that him being here is just his presence alone is costing you money, is costing you efficiency because there are workers who are refusing to work. It's costing you in sales or at marketing as well. Because I kind of feel like if you notice, Sony has the marketing, PlayStation has the marketing for Call of Duty. I don't recall Call of Duty being at. I mean, they didn't do very many events this year. But like they had state of plays, and even after Vanguard was revealed, they had state of plays where they still didn't show Call of Duty. And so, like, outside of TV spots and advertisements you may see on a YouTube channel, like what did they do?
Yeah,
as far as the marketing with I almost kind of feel like they distanced themselves from them once all this stuff kind of came out, and only so much so because of course you're spending money to do the marketing, right? But it's, I think partially, I don't want to act like Jim Ryan's being disingenuous or anything, but that's a business partner that you're in bed with, and your business partner ain't looking too good. And then they start making decisions that you don't think they should be making. If it was in your house, you'd be like, nah, fam, we're not doing this. So it's interesting how that turns out. Oh, go ahead.
I want to make sure like that comes out as like a thing that he should get huge credit for. Like that is a CEO using his power appropriately to try and influence a person or groups of people, right, to move something in the right direction, and not something that the Sony CEO, that the PlayStation CEO, sorry, is obligated to do, right? So I don't know like the set of conversations that happened to push that, but like, and let me say, Jim Ryan is not a person who is in my most favorite person, right, status, right? He's not a person who typically speaks to me and the things that I like and desire and am interested in, but that was a huge power move.
You don't like games on PC?
No. I just mean Jim Ryan coming across as somebody who speaks to me as a gamer. Just a lot of the mealy mouth stuff about like crossplay and things like that have kind of fallen flat with me. But I give him big props today for making a huge power move by getting that statement, by making that call and getting that statement out there.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I would agree with that. Game logic. I'm gonna grab the super chat real quick from Jeff B Gaming. Says this is for you, Slimo. Says how the hell is Halo better than COD when the progression system is broken with no bonus XP, weak battle pass, and encourages a pay to win model?
Okay, so first of all, why say no bonus XP when that's a part of the battle pass? So you're trying to add additional things to say when you have very little to say, Jeff. It's a free-to-play multiplayer. So why do developers make their multiplayer free-to-play? Is it supposed to always be free? Or what's the incentive to make it free? How does Fortnite, that's a free game, make money and make more money than everyone else? You have microtransactions. It's the way that is. There is no pay-to-win model in Halo Infinite. Period. You pay for cosmetics. So let's not do that. That you clearly have not played Halo Infinite, Jeff. That's obvious. And why is it better than COD? Because it plays better. That's why. and a battle pass that everyone has already said to them in the flight, said to them in during this beta, this doesn't work, and they have acknowledged it, and they're making some changes. Now, whether those changes actually work, we'll see. If they don't, then people will get in on them as they deserve to get on them for not having it where it needs to be. But that's it. A battle pass does not change how a game plays. When the game plays better than COD, then it is what it is. You could be hurt by that, but that's something that you're going to have to deal with.
Oh my goodness!
Oh man,
that is so funny. Well, Solo, thank you for that response, sir. I was thank
no
you.
problem.
I have nothing to add. Solo.
It's what I'm here
you know,
for.
I know. I'll say and one. No.
Yeah, there we go. All right, everyone. Please hit that like button, by the way, if you haven't done so yet. Appreciate it. And I do want to move on from the Bobby Kotick Activision debacle to something that is near and dear to me. I don't know if many of you know this, but I was an Xbox Live beta tester.
Oh.
Yes, I was. This is true. And if you don't believe me, I have somebody here who I met as an Xbox Live beta tester 20 years ago.
Hold up. You were an Xbox beta tester?
I was.
It's true, Slomo. I know you can't believe it, but he really was.
All these years, I never knew that. You never talk about this, Enrique.
You must tune him out for like 99% of the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
no. Go ahead, man.
No, and I wanted to have Lemieux on because I met Lemieux on Revolt 20 years ago.
Yes,
and
sir.
just like with a random chance encounter, and I was like, okay, he's cool. He's a cool guy, and we add each other to our friends list, and the rest is history, man. And we've had some great gaming experiences on Xbox Live. I always remember what Lemieux and I used to dub as the rivalry, and so we used to play NFL 2K on Xbox Live a lot, right? And there was that one game I'll never forget. I was the Washington Redskins, and he was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I was up by I think 6 points or something, or 3 points or something. And he had the ball left with 2 seconds. Snaps the ball, 0 seconds. Throws the ball to Plax Burress for a 90-yard touchdown to win the game. I'll never forget that.
It was
Sounds
destiny.
like some typical football game foolishness, man. Yo, I can't play I stopped playing football games. I think it was a Madden game. I was playing with my friend, and he won a game-winning touchdown in a Hail Mary, and in the instant replay, the ball bounced into the end zone and into his receiver's hands. I said, "That's it. I'm never playing a football game again." And I haven't. They are such trash. I just can't. But at least NFL 2K was the best.
2K5 is still the best.
It's still the best. How is Madden still not outdone a game that's 16 years old? It's crazy.
If you could give me roster updates to NFL 2K5 and make it and make it playable, I would play that over Madden today.
Yeah,
easily.
me too. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would too.
But back then, even back then, their animations were more interesting than Madden's are today. The blocking was a little bit more interesting. Everything. I can't figure out why it's you've been the only game in town. You couldn't just look back and steal some of the stuff that people loved about. I don't know, man. That's crazy. Yeah, those are some good times.
What for? They had no competition.
Yeah, I know.
That's what no competition gets you. It gets you
Facts.
very little changes, very little advancements. Because why not? I mean, what else is going to happen? It's not like you're going to not play the only football game that you can get.
Yeah, it wasn't 2K5. Didn't it also? Was it the first game that you could download your friends' tendencies and things like that? I thought I remember.
I don't remember.
Oh man, look, man, I wasn't even 21 years old when that game came out. So I wait a minute, hold on.
You're so young, man.
No.
No, you were
21. I was.
Yeah, you had to be 20. No, that game came out 2003.
Years. I'm 40. It was 20. I was 24. Jeez.
Yeah. Okay.
My brain right now. But yeah, I was. You know what? I thought I wasn't 21 because I was still broke at 24. So that's it. So I was broke. So I remember being broke. Anyway,
Yeah, but 2K5 was only $20 at the time. It launched for $20.
Right.
That was part of the reason why I was. See, that was such a genius move, but it also was kind of downfall because the NFL didn't they kind of felt like that was devaluing their brand. And so that was partly part of the reason why they went exclusive with EA. But it was a genius move when you think about the fact that nobody would play NFL 2K because people automatically called it trash compared to Madden, and they hadn't even played it.
Right.
And so they came out like a month early, and then they said it's $20. And people at that point, it's like, well, why not, right? It's just $20. I'll play it. Like I remember picking it up, saying I'll play this until Madden comes out, and then realizing what have I been doing all these years playing Madden instead of this? Because this is so much better. It was just a smart move, man.
Yeah, that really was.
And it backfired on him.
Yeah, but no, like like I said, Matt Lemieux on Revolt, which was is Revolt and NFL Fever were the games for the Xbox Live Beta. So so 20 years of Xbox, it's cool. And then I met OBM, like shortly after that, I think. I think maybe Chance Encounter to OBM. I don't remember, but
well, I was in the GameSpot forums all the damn time. I remember
that's right.
And I think that's like that's where Canes came from, and a bunch of us dudes. Like it was like we used to just be in there all the time, and then I think it started like everybody started to get together with like the Halo 2 nights. I can't remember if we played stuff before that though.
No, we definitely did. We played. I remember playing Unreal Championship.
Oh, that was my jam. Like up until Halo 2 came out, Unreal Championship. It's kind of funny. You like think back though. It's like I have such clear like gaming related memories from that generation, and like then going into like the early days of the 360. That I just like I don't know that I've had duplicate like similar types of things, and I don't know if it's just because I'm an adult now with kids and. Things change, but I think also the industry was really, I don't know. There was just always this like mystery or like this, like you didn't know what was around the corner back then. I feel like, and like you didn't know what you needed until it came out. And like, I just remember like that first night. So I was like day one, I wasn't beta tester, but I did have my starter pack, pre-ordered. I went in line and picked it up day one. I don't think the line was that big that night, but I went to GameStop and grabbed it. I think at midnight they did it that day, and I remember like getting on like super late at night. Obviously it was like after midnight, and like the first thing I jump in Unreal Championship, and I had like some little dude or some dude with some like using the squeaky remember the voice the voice
mask.
Oh yeah, the voice.
Talking about my mom
like
and. Like
modulator or something.
Yeah, like sounded like he had like a Smurf voice or something like that, talking about my mom and stuff like that. It's like, I just remember.
Hey, your mom's a whore.
Hey, fuck you.
What?
That's back in the day. That's what that's when I learned that there's racism still existed in America. You learned a lot of things on Xbox Live that you didn't know, like if you were just naive and like because people weren't not afraid. They just weren't afraid to say anything back then. It's like they're like I got a mic. Nobody can kick my ass. I'm going to see what I can get away with here. And but it was cool because I met a lot of people back then. And obviously we just talked like us three here, and we still know Canes, and there's a couple other people on my friends list, and it's just weird, man. It's like all this time. It's like 20 years later, and you kind of become friends with people. And they just feel like friends. Like it wasn't even after a while. It's not even just like gaming friends. It's like you get to know them. You get to know like all these guys before they had 4 kids and chickens and all that stuff, like Enrique. But it's like over the years you just. I just thought that was really cool, and I really do look back at that time. It was sort of for me. It was like I look at that as like kind of the beginning of like a social revolution or something. It was like a paradigm change because, gaming was for me always an isolated thing. Like I didn't have people locally that would come over and play couch co-op with me, and my best friend, my best friends from high school moved out of state or, when, all this other stuff. And so, for me, when it comes to gaming, I didn't have people locally. So this was like, and if you guys remember back then, remember like all the network marketing, like pyramid schemes for like long distance and stuff. Like long distance was like, like calling somebody in another state was expensive. I remember calling somebody like 3 hours away would get expensive, and then suddenly you could reconnect with your buddy who lived in another state, and it's like, hey, let's get on there and just like play a game together. And I thought that was revolutionary, man. And I think I still look back at the OG Xbox, and for me, it's still, I think, my favorite generation because of those things. Because there's good games in every single generation, but that kind of stuff really stood out to me as like super exciting, and there just was this like this sense of wonderment or like mystery about what's going to be coming next. And it seemed like they kept updating things, and there's new features every E3. There was like something new they tried to add to it, and it was good times, man. It was those were fun times.
Yeah, you mentioned OG Xbox, and like to me, actually, that's probably, and I don't know if you would agree with me, Lemieux, but the OG Xbox is probably my favorite Xbox console, believe it or not. For some of the things OBM just mentioned.
Oh, absolutely. Just the fact that if you got an original Xbox, you knew that everyone came packed with a headset. So that was what made it great. Is everybody had the ability to communicate from the get go. It was great.
Don't you miss that?
What's that?
I mean, it would be great now if they actually like gave you like, somewhat of a decent headset, because like the one they would give you was like, it was fine. You could have a conversation with people, but like if you were really serious about it, you'd be like, man, I'm about to upgrade this, right? But it would be cool if like they would like come out with a system, or at least have a bundle, right, where it's like the what's the one that they have, the Xbox wireless headset. I don't think it's that good, but that Xbox wireless headset, if it just like came with it, there's like a bundle where it just comes with it. That'd be pretty cool.
I totally forgot you had to plug that damn janky ass headset into your controller.
Yeah,
I totally forgot about that.
It was so bad.
Yeah, but I remember the first time my ex-wife walked in the room and saw me wearing that headset, she just started laughing, man. She just started fucking laughing. She's like, "What the fuck is like?" Anyways, that was probably the beginning of the end. I'm just kidding. But
I was like, "Yeah, you know what? You're done. I'm out."
It's like, you know what? You just don't understand me.
No, it was a big deal. It really was. I mean, just the ability to communicate. Like I remember, it's crazy. I don't. It's really weird. Like I remember more of the OG Xbox era than I do the 360 for some reason. Even Xbox One. I don't know why. But I remember like talking to Lemieux the first time. You're like, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?" Because we were like it was so new, right, on the console side. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Game Logic. I'm assuming that you had an OG Xbox.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah. Were you a beta tester?
I was not a beta tester, no.
Okay. So what was it about the OG Xbox that attracted you to it? Like, that made you think, okay, I got to pick up this console.
Oh man, do you want the whole story?
Yeah. Let's hear the whole story.
So I guess so I think a couple people have seen my reminiscing on Twitter. So the really weird happenstance and crazy once in a lifetime thing that happened. So the day the Xbox launched, I had been out of the country for 6 months. And I had come back, I think like the day before, maybe 2 days before. And I had just kind of like got back in my apartment, like went and stocked the refrigerator, took a shower, and then I just slept for like 19 hours or something like that. And in my local theater, actually, there was a new movie out that I wanted to see. Actually, it was Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. Movie was out, and like the only way to go to and see this thing and not be in a big, sweaty, crowded theater was to go to this one place near my apartment that had like an 8 a.m. show. So I got up the next morning, went to that show, saw the movie. It's like a 2.5 hour movie or whatever. And so about like 10:30, and I'd lived in this town for like 3 weeks before I'd left. So I didn't know anybody. I didn't know what to do. So I just kind of aimlessly wandered over to the mall and walked into GameStop. And I had heard about the Xbox before I left. I was up on it because I was already a PC gamer. And so in my mind, in my head, Microsoft was the big company that powered the technology that made games possible. And about this time, we were starting to hear like the rumors that Sega was just going to completely get out of the console hardware business, and I had been a longtime Sega fan. So I was already up and interested on the Xbox, but I had kind of completely forgotten about it while I was out of the country. So I walk in the store after being gone 6 months, and there's all these, like, there's the Master Chief, like, you know, stand-up pop-up thing in the store. There's all this Microsoft Xbox branding all over. And I'm like, what the hell's going on in here? And I talked to the guy, and he was like, oh, yeah, it's launch day. And I was like, well, do you have any units? Blah, blah, blah. We went through this whole thing. And he was like, a truck's coming in this afternoon. It's got some pre-orders on it, but, like, we're only holding the pre-orders for like so long. And then if people don't pick them up, we're going to let people buy them. And he said there's probably 2 or 3 extra units on that truck. So like I ran home, bundled up my Dreamcast, rolled to like a secondhand game place and sold it, and got the cash for that. And then came back to the store, got the guy on the phone on my way over, heard that the truck was in, walked in the store, got an Xbox. And so I was on leave. So I like went home, and basically that whole day I did nothing but play Halo and Madden for the rest of the day. So yeah, so I was huge. And what we were talking about before about like the online community. So I didn't get online on my OG Xbox, but I did huge on my 360. And like that was just a golden age of, you know, the comment social revolution was mentioned, and I think that's appropriate. That was a golden age of online gaming that I have talked for 2 decades about like us getting back to that, and it's clear to me that time's gone. Like it's never going to come again. And so that moment in time from, I hold it as 2005 until Modern Warfare 2 came out, right? Which is when like the toxicity just like went through the roof.
Went downhill, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, and the huge technical piece, right, that made all that feasible was we had control of our lobbies. If we remember back then, when you were in a lobby, your individual Xbox unit was the primary host, and you could kick people out of your lobby when they were behaving badly and didn't vibe with everybody else. So I'd be in a PGR, in a Project Gotham Racing lobby, Project Gotham Racing 2 lobby, even a COD lobby, right? And, you know, the conversation would be going on before the game booted up. And like anybody who was like a jerk or an asshole, like that person would just get bounced.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, and then Modern Warfare 2, at least, it might have been there in Modern Warfare, but Modern Warfare 2 came along and control of lobbies was gone, and that became the trend, right? So you just went into a mass lobby. The control was on the server side from either the Xbox Center or, you know, the individual publisher who was controlling the server, and you were just given the option to mute people, you know? And then from there, we evolved to now everybody gets in their own party chat and nobody talks to anybody, right, in a game, except like the one person who's on there with their music blasting in the background and their 3 kids yelling, right?
It's usually death metal or something blasting in the back.
Right.
You know, Game Logic, you bring up some good. You're making me think back about a lot of things, and you bring up some good points because the party chat was kind of a blessing and a curse at the same time. I do think you like it was really obviously it's a feature I think most people would not trade today, but at the same time, you know, you did lose that fact that, you know, you pretty much for a couple of years, for a few years, you know, people were generally on their mics, you know, you made friends, you know, yeah, you ran into a bunch of a-holes too, but, you know, you made a lot of friends, people talked trash in between matches, you know, and all that stuff. But I will say though, to what you were saying there about like the lobbies and stuff, that still possible in some games. It's probably one of the reasons why I am, you know, one of the things I like about Halo out of the many. You know, you can still have like I know I did it for a while here, even with Halo 5, you know, we'd have like weekly, you know, game nights and things like that with just a bunch of dudes, and you just kind of figure out how to balance the teams and do kind of crazy modes and stuff. And like, so I still think that stuff's possible, but the thing is, like, is the appetite as big as it used to be? Probably, you know, not. People want to, you know, just get in their, you know, small squad and, you know, try to do as good as they can. But I still think those options are out there, and I do think people can still find that to an extent these days.
Yeah, you just don't have that huge population who's aligning to that modality, right? And you don't have that kind of bow wave of support. I will also say I do firmly remember the magic of the packed-in headset. I don't remember it on the original Xbox, but I definitely remember it on the 360. And what I remember at the time, having had both a 360 and a PlayStation 3 at the time, the stark difference in an Xbox online community and a PlayStation online community, where on an Xbox, people tended to be on comms because they had the packed-in headset, and at a minimum, people were typically on that thing, even though it was ghetto AF. But people were on it. And then you go over to the PlayStation 3 lobby, and like no one's on comms, like nobody's talking. There's like one dude in the game who's talking to you. So
it was also really bad too. Like if anyone was talking, there was always so much feedback. It was really bad. Like, I was just like, please, just don't even bother. Like, please don't say anything because you're killing my ears. It was pretty bad back then.
Yeah, the one thing about the OG Xbox too, I think about 20 years of Xbox. And I said earlier, like it's probably my favorite Xbox console for some of the things that Lemieux and OBM mentioned. And what you mentioned earlier, just a second ago, Gamer Logic. But the games too, like it was the birthplace of Halo. Like, and the reason why I've been so critical of, what I have said is, my concern over the development of the campaign for Halo Infinite is because I remember the pedigree and how Halo really shook the industry and really changed the landscape. I mean, it really did. It had that kind of impact. And so there was Halo, but there's also other games like, Project Gotham Racing, remember Project Ego, which eventually became Fable. I remember, one of the reasons I remember getting really excited about Fable, when Peter Molyneux was talking about Project Ego, how I was like, oh, your actions are going to have impact in the game, the way people approach you. And if, remember, like, he's like, if you plant like an oak tree seed or something,
it was an acorn. If you step on an acorn,
yeah, there you go. Acorn, yeah.
I read that article so many damn times. It never happened.
I know, but it made it sound like Slow-mo. You're messy, man. It made it sound like
what I do?
Pony tier collector, man. I saw that.
That's my side job. I'm just trying to make a little money on the side. There's a lot of tiers, recently. Yeah. So I heard, like their tiers are magical because they're like Pegasus or something, some kind of mythical creature. So like I said, why not? Collect the tiers.
Tiers, Gypsy.
Sell them on eBay. For make a little money on the side. I mean, maybe I can afford a 3090 or something.
3090, right? Yeah.
All right. I did say Nick Chow was going to stop trolling, so let me stop. All right, I'm going to change my name to something nice.
Yeah, the other thing too, Gabosh, you brought up Sega and Dreamcast, and we know that Sega played a pretty I can't even talk tonight. Was pretty instrumental in bringing first party or not first party content, but exclusive content to the original Xbox. If you guys remember Jet Set Radio Future, which was one of my favorite games on the original Xbox.
Yep.
Jet Set Radio. Oh man, that was great.
The music and the spray painting was so awesome.
It was, yeah. I mean,
that is the one game I'm very
Was I
sad
the
about.
only one that knew that Yo-Yo was a robot the entire time?
Probably. I didn't know that he was.
I was just like, this kid never says anything else but yo. Like, they were like, hey, Yo-Yo, go do this. Yo! I'm like, really? That's all he's got? I don't want to talk about someone's mental intelligence, but dag, like, come on, what is going on with this kid? And then he turned out to be a robot. I was like, I freaking knew it. I love that game though. Like that game needs to come back. Like if anything comes out of this Microsoft Sega Alliance thing that maybe eventually down the line may turn into some games, I want that to be like a remake or something.
That's right. Especially since it can't be backwards compatible. Like they had the music, I think, licensing problems.
Right. Start over then. Start over and get in. Since we talked about, since we were all talking about this, I kind of feel like I'm tired of seeing games get delisted because of the whole licensing deal with music. Can we start doing what movies do, where they just they get a soundtrack or they get music specifically for the movie, so it's theirs to play around with. They want to put it on HBO, they want to put it on like regular TV, or they want to send that thing overseas to like some other station overseas or whatever. They can do whatever they want with it, and the music isn't holding things back. I don't know why the game industry doesn't do that. I can see everyone loves Guardians of the Galaxy, but I can see that game being delisted in 6 years.
Yeah.
Because no one's buying the game anymore, and the music is too expensive to keep. Yeah.
Yeah. The other Sega games too. I mean, there was Shenmue 2, which came to the Xbox. There was Panzer Dragoon Orta.
Yeah,
I remember that one. Yeah,
that was a great game.
That was really pretty for its time.
Ninja Gaiden.
Ninja
Gaiden was one of the Ninja Gaiden still holds up today. It's crazy. So actually, some of the games that are on that system,
I played the 360 version. On backwards compatibility, it held up pretty well.
Yeah, I mean,
I forget which Ninja Gaiden that was. Ninja Gaiden 2 or 3, I forget. But
no, Ninja Gaiden. Well, it was Ninja Gaiden and then Ninja Gaiden Black on the OG, and then I think 2. The 2 was the first one that came out on the 360. And if I remember, Lemmy, I think you and Canes are both like F that game after a point, because I think
game was hard.
A point in that game. Yeah, there was a point in the game where it goes from being hard to being like damn near impossible with the rocket guys, I guess, or whatever.
I'm shocked no one has brought up the GOAT yet.
What's the GOAT?
You know what I'm talking about?
Splinter Cell?
Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh, yeah, we're getting to
Republic.
KOTOR. Yeah, Knights of the Republic.
Yeah.
Man,
and actually,
that plot twist in the middle of the game. Epic.
Oh, let's not talk about that.
Why not?
Because it's coming out again. You can't spoil it for those who haven't played it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but the thing is that I heard they're changing. No, they probably won't change that because that's like a
they can't change it. They can't change that.
They can't change that. But still, that was so like epic. That was the first time people really kind of saw like major plot twist stuff that you would see in like movies and TV shows in the video game. Like where the story is just like so great, where everyone's just like, I can't believe this is happening, and that game put BioWare on the map, man.
Well, if you remember back then, Slow-Mo, like remember Star Wars was kind of trash at the I mean, to me it was.
Yeah, it was.
And maybe it never came back since then. But
that Star Wars trilogy was trash at the time.
Well, and it was so disappointing because I remember the Star Wars Episode 1 is probably one of the most looked forward movies. Yeah, it was probably one of the things I look forward to more than any other movie, maybe ever. And then it just turned out to be such dumpster fire. But the thing is, I remember this was like the take back then. Like people were saying, and I agreed with it. This is like the best Star Wars movie since the original, Star Wars story since the original trilogy. In BioWare, it was. I think that
it's the
was
best Star Wars story. Period.
Yeah, like BioWare did something special there, where they kind of. Because it wasn't just that it was a really good video game story, it was a good video game story that you could compare to like other, like within the same universe to other, types of media. And I think that's what made it kind of stand out. It's like, how does a game going to take one of the biggest licenses, in the world and deliver a better narrative than what you would get with these, mega blockbuster movies, and there's books and all this other stuff out there, and that was that's when you're right. I think that's like when BioWare really started coming in their own. I know I kind of was fans of them from the Baldur's Gate on the PC, because when I came to OG Xbox, I was PC Master Race back when that actually was back when there was actually a pretty big gulf between what you would play on PC and console. Like today, I get it. Like today, you can get a lot more frames and stuff. But back then, it was almost like it was usually like a generational difference, like even at the beginning of a generation. And I think the OG Xbox was the first thing that kind of blurred that, to me at least, as somebody who spent years on there. And, and part of the reason was, they brought in the hard drive. And I remember like, and Blackley was, he talked about it. If you could go watch some of the interviews he's had, over the last few years with like, McCaffrey and some other places, he talked about that. That was the one thing that he was like ready. He said, hey, if I don't get this, I was ready to walk out. Like, cause he's like, I know it was coming, he knew it was on PC. And like he said, the broadband and the hard drive are like non-negotiable, or the Ethernet port and the hard drive are non-negotiable. And like looking back on it, like that's really, when we're talking about like how, Halo really stood out, that's, people don't realize it, but one of the reasons why that game and Morrowind and Knights of the Old Republic. Like the reason why those games were possible in the form that they were was because of the hard drive. And I know like a lot of people think of Fable, Project Eagle when it comes to that, because Peter Molyneux talked about it a lot. They think about Blinks, but it was the subtle things. It was being able to stream in. Yeah, Blinks was just trash, but it was the
what about
subtle
Voodoo
things.
Vince?
Oh my God.
I never played that. I can't.
That game it wasn't that good.
I don't feel likes it, but
Ed Freeze, Lemieux.
Huh?
What did you say?
I said, what about Ed Freeze? Lemieux and I used to like watch the Xbox E3 conferences together.
Yo, I gotta say, one of my favorite things about the OG Xbox was the demo discs. Oh man, those were great.
Shit, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's why everybody got the original, the official Xbox magazine was for the discs.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but there were some really, I mean, like Slomo and UOBM were mentioning like KOTOR and the Elder Scrolls Morrowind, Jade Empire, yeah, another great one. I mean, there were so many great games that were. I mean, think about it. Like Microsoft, this is their first entry into gaming. And like they were able to get like Ninja Gaiden. I always talk about Ninja Gaiden. Like this is why I'm so hard on the Xbox now, because like I think about the OG Xbox and I had that perspective of the impact they were making in the industry as a newcomer, right? With not just the hardware but the software side of things. I mean, like to get Ninja Gaiden. I mean, Tobanu, I can't remember his first name. Itagaki.
Itagaki, yeah.
Itagaki was like, yeah, he was like, hey, you know what? Screw PS2. It's weak. I can only I can only make Ninja Gaiden on Xbox, right? That's basically like what he was saying. And look, there was Dead or Alive Beach Volleyball, which look, I actually hey, you laugh at you from a gameplay perspective, it was actually a decent volleyball game.
That's such bullshit. That's like somebody saying they buy Playboy for the articles. Come on.
Actually, Playboy does have good articles. That's not actually. Let me. That's not false.
Correct. Yeah, no one bought that. No one who bought that game bought it because the volleyball was actually good.
You bought it just for the physics, right?
Yeah.
No, the ball physics.
I want to see Digital Foundry does need to do a breakdown of that game, but yeah, keep going.
No, you know what? I think that game actually was.
The boobs are moving at a different frame rate than the rest of the game. That kind of stuff.
Oh my god!
Go ahead, man.
No, I think that game. I actually think that game was. I think it was actually well reviewed, if I'm not mistaken. Like, hold on, I'm gonna look this up right now. I think it's like a 80% Metacritic. Oh no, it's actually not. 73 Metacritic. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, that makes.
It wasn't. It was technically impressive, but it wasn't.
I didn't think it was bad. I didn't think it was bad in terms of gameplay, but.
Well, look, I mean, actual Dead Alive fighting game. I actually, even though it was a very easy fighting game to play, it was good. It was fun.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad game.
It wasn't a bad game.
Yeah, but no, I mean,
playing in the arcades.
Yeah, and then Forza. Then Forza at the tail end of the Xbox was born.
Yeah,
you guys remember that?
It had the livery system, right?
Yeah,
there was all kinds of innovations. But the one thing to what you were just saying there, though, Enrique, the one thing I will mention, I don't think, and that's why to me that generation is like, and that console specifically was so cool to me, and why I think it's still one of the most probably is the most underrated console of all time. I get people, because at the end of the day, it didn't have nearly as many exclusives as like PlayStation probably had like 3 times more big name exclusives, but the things that it was doing to the things that it kept trying to do from an innovation standpoint, I don't know that you're ever going to get that on local hardware again, because all the stuff that we're talking about was possible for the most part. Maybe I don't know about Ninja Gaiden or the boob physics, but for the most part, like the most of the things we're talking about that jump was because of the hard drive or the built-in Ethernet that allowed them to do things. Like there's articles, like if you read with like Jay Allard, like there was a lot of pushback from Microsoft executives on the cost of the Ethernet and the hard drive, and like Allard said, hey, no, like it was like they up until the very end, they wanted to keep cutting it, and he's like, no, if we go with regular dial-up, I can't, it's beneath. I'm trying to remember the actual words, but basically he said it's like beneath our vision or something like that. Like they set their minds on this, this vision, and he's like, basically, like that vision is not possible if you dilute this. And I don't know that you can ever have that locally again. I think that could come back someday, but it's going to come back in the form of what's possible with like hybrid stuff in the cloud. I won't get into all that, but I think these days, because you're trying to keep the architecture as easy as possible for developers to transition to and all that other stuff, you're not going to get those really eccentric, you'd have to look to the PC for that to happen, and then maybe to bring it in on console. But I don't think it's happened. Oh, go ahead, Elijah.
I don't want to totally give up on that notion, right? Because, you look at the velocity architecture, right, which is the enablement of data being transferred directly from the SSD to the GPU, right, without having to go across the PCIe bus, which is an innovation that first appeared on the series, right, and now is going to show up on the PC, right, in DirectX 12. So this is an instance where we've kind of see it work the other way around, where typically, I absolutely agree with you, there's innovations on the PC side and then it trickles down to consoles. But this is an instance where, just because of the way the cycle wound up, we got to see that innovation first on Xbox, and then it be ported over to the PC, which I think is a great arrangement, because that console innovation kind of is on a forced march and it has to happen on a certain timeline, whereas the PC market doesn't necessarily align to that. So I'm hoping that continues, but I'm right there with you. We give so much credit in the tech space to, when Apple chooses to do things and that pushes the industry in a certain direction. And, to be quite honest, when PlayStation does something in it, but like those innovations in that generation, right, the hard drive and the Ethernet port, kind of forced the entire industry to shift over to that model. And then we saw that replicated in their hardware sets, right, as the future moved on. So it was a great move.
Yeah, it was. And I think to your point, you're right. I mean, it's not like the end of innovation or hardware innovation. I guess in my mind, to that extent, because you get to a point of diminishing returns, and then games take now 5 years, to make, if they're going to try anything ambitious. So, back then, I think, they were able to turn things a lot faster to really kind of capitalize on that. I mean, the fact that the Halo CE was a launch game, and it was using, and obviously it was being built for the PC before that, but, that's crazy, because it did things with physics nothing else on consoles did. It did things with AI that nothing on consoles did. It was the first game where you can go indoor, outdoor with like streaming, and they would hide the loading, as you're walking through hallways and stuff like that. It was just across the board. Like I came from I don't know that I was the highest in PC. I was a PC gamer, and Half-Life it's still one of my favorite games of all time. And I played System Shock 2 and stuff like that. But like when you drop out of the you drop out on the first time you get a chance to ride in a Warthog, or you get dropped on the beach. There was nothing like that to me, like on anything.
There wasn't,
and I was just like, holy, and I think we got some of that early on the 360 generation too, with walking out of the dungeon and Oblivion and stuff like that. But and the first time you ever saw Gears, but I feel like now it's so iterative, and there's some advantages to that. You get a lot more games, and they're making it easier again for developers to jump in. But you're not. I don't remember the last time my jaw really dropped. To that extent. It doesn't happen because I think we have got past that point. So
yeah. Let me grab some super chats here real quick. Got a $2 super chat from Jeff B Gaming. Says Apex, Fortnite, Warzone are free to play and have bonus XP. That's for you, Slow-Mo.
That's great.
Take that, Slow-Mo.
Oh, yeah. Oh no.
Gable O'Brien with the $5 super chat says, BRAP, me, Slow-Mo don't play football. In Pegasus Nation, we play pony ball. Question for panel. When upgrading Final Fantasy Remake to PS5, do the trophies pop automatically? Yes, they do. Thank you for that super chat.
I've been called the Xbot and the pony in the same podcast. I think it's got to be a record.
That's a good evening for you, sir.
Yeah, it is, yeah. I'll be a PCMR before the show's over.
Yeah,
Slow-mo is the real PC master race, dude. Yeah. It's not just a cover for his Pegasus Nation contract.
Yeah, but I do. It's interesting. I remember how aggressive Microsoft was after the Xbox. Like they wanted to beat. One of the things he talked about was kind of beating Sony to the next generation, because Sony, the PlayStation 2 had a year head start to the OG Xbox, and the 360 launches, and like that again. I really enjoyed the 360. I thought it was a great concept. Obviously, the Red Ring of Death issue was kind of a downer, but I think they handled that correctly. I think that like at that point they were, at least for me, they were like they had taken everything, because I thought they had some good momentum coming out of the OG Xbox, had made some really good strides developing new IP. They had, just bought, Rare. Rare was a big purchase back then. Like that kind of shook the industry as well. Like everyone's really shocked that happened. They buy Rare, and then, they get, launch Perfect Dark and stuff like that on the 360. And, we start seeing, they get, what's his name? Who's the guy behind Final Fantasy again that they got for,
no. What?
Sakaguchi. Yeah, they get Miss
Walker.
They get Miss Walker. I mean, that was huge.
Yeah,
that was huge.
Blue Dragon.
It's
right. Lost Odyssey.
Lost Odyssey. Yeah.
Did they didn't do Infinite on Discovery, right?
I don't.
They didn't do that.
I don't think so.
But that came out around that same time. But those were some Japanese RPGs that were like, they were exclusive to Xbox and they were good.
Hey, do you guys remember, anyone on the panel remember True Fantasy Live? Like, whatever happened to that?
No, well, the developer still hates them over it. So they just canceled it. I think so. Like, for people who don't know, like back then, like Microsoft was structured way differently, and like when Ballmer and like Gates finally bought in on Xbox, they're like, okay, we're just going to give you guys a check. We're not going to bother you. You guys can go back and do whatever you need. Like, just tell us what you need and get it done. But then over time, like the executives started stepping in more and more, and like, oh, this is too expensive. You got too many of these things going on. Like you like listen to Blackley. Like actually, at Fry's, it was talking about it during an interview where he basically was like, that's when I decided to walk out, because they kept coming in more and more, and then eventually they got pulled under Windows. And like even if you look back to the early 360, almost everything that was really, really like taking those big chances, big swings, like trying to innovate, all that stuff with the gamings, like when they published Mass Effect, Gears, all the, Lost Odyssey, all that stuff was greenlit by the team that was separate from Windows. When they got pulled under the Windows started like managing them more like as a mature division, and then try to maximize the profits and stuff. So I think they lost a lot of the identity like around that time. But I think we got to experience some of the really good years from the original teams up until about 2008, and then it kind of flipped over. That's when you started to really see. Really, from 2008 to about 2017, like they were managed like a business, and it wasn't about innovation and things like that. So, I mean, there was still innovation, but they weren't as aggressive with it. They were more measured. I don't think they weren't willing to lose money back then, to try to push more market share or whatever. But anyways, I'm going off on a tangent, but I think that's what happened to some of those games that you're talking about. Like what happened to True Fantasy Online, what happened, why Psychonauts almost got canceled, because it was a published deal. It was because the execs started stepping in and going, you guys are spending too much money here, so that kind of changed.
Yeah. Hey, Lemieux, let me ask you something, Lemieux. Like what were your like favorite games on the 360? I know what they are for the OG Xbox, but like, what about the 360?
360 is definitely got to be the Gears franchise. I don't know, man. I really got into the I'm trying to think of what it was called. I'm having a mind block here. Oh jeez. Come back to me. Come back to me.
All right. You mentioned Gears, and Gears for me was the first game since Halo, really, on the OG Xbox, that like made me say, "Wow, like
Yeah.
what is happening here?" Like, Game Logic, were you a big Gears fan? Like when they showed up the 360, did you play it or?
Yeah, I was there for it. I had like I said, I didn't play online on the Xbox, but in the 360 era, it kind of made a change in lifestyle at the time. So I had a lot more gaming time. Was a lot more stable, less moving around. So I started kind of building a steady crew through my experiences on Xbox Live. So yeah, I was a fan of Gears. I think I liked Gears 2 actually was kind of like my pinnacle with that franchise. But my other favorites on 360 were like I said, I love Project Gotham Racing.
Oh man,
I just loved, awesome. Yeah, I just loved being like we had kind of online kind of like pizza and Chinese food parties like on Friday nights. I'd come home Friday nights after work, jump online with my friends. We'd open up a lobby, man. We would just be racing from. I was single at the time. We'd be racing from like 7, 8 o'clock at night till, often 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. We would. That was back when Cat and Mouse was not like an official mode. It was like a made up game that we started playing. So yeah, that was awesome. But I got to tell you, one of my best experiences on the 360 and Xbox Live was Chrome Hounds, which came out.
Oh, I remember Chrome Hounds.
Yeah, it was actually from Software before they started making Demon Souls. Came out, I want to say it came out the summer before, so it was our summer before Gears of War game is what I want to say. And it just had so much structure around like clans and online gameplay, and like you could go around and like change allegiances to whatever of the 3 nations you want to play with, and it had this persistent battle map so that as individual clans, right, played PvP, the results of their battle would impact the amount of territory that your individual country controlled. So the battle line would be completely moving. So, I'd go to work in the morning and then I'd come back home and like the battle map like looked completely different. And then as you gain more territory, your squads would get access to like more and different types of gear. So, like I said, it was the summer. I kind of changed like my whole approach to work. I started going in really early so I could get home at like 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon and jump online with my Chrome Hound squad and battle for the rest of the night. So yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, that's
all right, BRAP. I remember my 360, the BioShock series, man. I absolutely love that game. Games. That's what I was trying to remember. Fantastic.
No, those were fantastic games, and again, the 360 was it's funny you mentioned Chrome Hounds. I mean, I didn't play that, but I do remember because I did have other like people that were in my clan playing that. But you mentioned From Software. I always remember. Remember Toji?
I just picked up the backwards compatible because I never played it. I need to find out what it's about.
Yeah. Did you did you ever play that? Either one of you, Lemieux or Game Logic or Slim? Did you guys play a Toji?
No,
I never did. No.
Yeah, that was a From Software game. It was actually debuted on the Xbox as an exclusive, and was actually a difficult game. I mean, it wasn't easy. I mean, it's a hack and slash, single player game, it released exclusively on the OG Xbox. I thought it was kind of a big get, and actually, I believe was it received pretty well, if I'm not mistaken. It was a Toji Myth of Demons, was what it was called, and I'm trying to see what the Metacritic for this. I'm always interested in Metacritic, right? It was about 80 of Metacritic, so not a bad user meta was like 8.7. It was a hard game though. It was definitely challenging. But
breaking news. So breaking news, real quick. Remember that game that was shown at the PlayStation Showcase last year, Pragmata?
Oh yeah, I saw that.
That has been delayed to 2023.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Doesn't surprise me either. But it looks amazing. What they just showed the little 30-minute clip of the little girl, like the facial animations in her face, like it's definitely doesn't look like last gen. Although I think the hair could use a little work, but look, the game's like 2 years out, so
I think 2023 is when you start to see that jump.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I want to mention and get back to is what we talked about, how, the appearance of the Xbox and then the evolution to the 360 started to bring closer this notion of like what was feasible on PC and what was feasible on console.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest gets on the 360 was the orange box.
Oh,
yeah. Portal 2
Like-
and Half-Life 2 Episode 2
Yeah.
combined. Yeah.
And Team Fortress.
Team Fortress, yeah.
And,
Yeah, so
Team
Team Fortress, yeah.
My bad. Yeah.
Oh, and
Just
then
the value
Minecraft.
I still have that actually. I actually have that. It's I think it's worth a lot of money. I don't know.
Is it backwards compatible or no?
I don't think that is. I don't
Oh,
think
man.
they made that one back. Actually, wait, no, I think they did, but it was late. Let me double check.
Like the value of being able to go and buy like those 3 games, right, for the same price or any regular
Yes,
new
it
release.
is
that was typically
backwards
one game.
compatible. It was made backwards compatible last year.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that's true. And then but I know we're kind of jumping around here, or I'm kind of jumping around here with games, but I think I go back to Gears, and I remember if I get Cliffy B on stage, at E3, and just seeing that trailer for the first time, and I was like, oh my god, like this game looks amazing, like, and then playing it, like it was like the killer app for the 360, right?
It was. It's the thing that. Well, Enrique, do you remember when it first got revealed? Because I don't know why I remember all this stuff so well, but I remember back at the time that the Xbox 360 did the reveal. Remember they did that whole MTV thing, which was like just got flamed to hell. Like the thing with Elijah Wood. They
I
showed
remember
Perfect
that
Dark.
with Elijah Wood, yeah.
Yeah, they showed Perfect Dark, and people were like, "What the hell? This doesn't look like a next generation game." And you remember, like, there was all that controversy. But then, the one thing that gave everybody who was an Xbox fan hope was they showed this really short clip. I think it might have been just a few seconds of Gears running at like 10 frames per second, and it was like, and everybody's like, "Whoa, what is that?" Because everything else early on in. And to their credit, they were pretty honest about what they had in the pipeline at that point. They didn't do like a lot of spruced up videos and stuff. These were where the games were, and most of them didn't look that impressive, right? They mostly look like OG Xbox games that were just in high def. But then they showed that, and then I just remember thinking, oh, there's just no way like it's going to look like that when you're playing it. And is this just going to be a tech demo like, Reckless? Remember that one, Enrique? But, like, is it going to be like one of those?
I remember Reckless, yeah.
Yeah. Well, is this going to be one of those pretty tech demos that just doesn't play good? And you're right. Like the first time you play that, it wasn't just that. It was like, wow, this looks like the way that I wanted it to look. It looks like what they showed me. And not only that, but it played really well. It was like it added mechanics that I don't think anything at that time really delivered on the cover mechanics the way that Gears did. It felt right. So it was gameplay and visuals kind of coming together, right? And it just you're right. I think that was like the poster child of why you needed a 360 back then.
Absolutely. I love that they introduced the active reload system. That was really cool too.
Yeah, I mean, everything about it was just really cool. Was I the only one that had Geometry Wars in their top games of all times?
No, I actually I know a couple of people that actually would agree with you, but that Geometry Wars is actually a great game. Like I never played it. I had people tell me I needed to play it, but I never got to it. But somebody brought up Mass Effect earlier, and that was certainly a game that I identified mostly with the 360. I mean, the first Mass Effect, and play the trilogy on that console, and it was just a great console. I mean, all around. I mean, outside of the issues with that Ring, and then there was the Kinect towards the latter part of it, which I personally didn't care for. I
feel like the Kinect really messed them up.
Yeah,
and messed them up in the sense that
yeah.
its success on the 360 screwed them up for the next generation, for the Xbox One generation.
It's a great segue there, Slow-Mo.
because they went into the Xbox One generation thinking like that the Kinect was going to be a thing. Like it was going to be a permanent fixture in gaming. That it was more than just a side piece, and it just couldn't be that. Like that wasn't where gaming was going. People bought it a lot in the 360 generation because you already had a massive player base, and then with the not the Switch, but the Wii being popular at that time. I mean, the Wii's a gimmick. The move controls, that stuff is gimmick now. Like you got move controls and PlayStation controllers now. What's the big deal? It's nothing, right? So like this, they thought it would be bigger than what it was, and they really sacrificed so much to make it a part of every single Xbox.
Yeah.
To the detriment of the overall performance of the system, the power, and the price. It's a bad move all the way around. I just still can't believe that they went all in on that like that.
Yeah, because wasn't the deal with when the Xbox One first came out, there was no SKU without the Kinect, right? You had to get the Kinect with it.
You had $100 more than the PlayStation 4, less powerful, and then you had all the people that was like, Microsoft is looking at me. Then you had like the conspiracy theory guys that was just like, I'm not that's not going nowhere near my house. They had the other issue where they launched in less than half of the same countries that PlayStation launched in, because they couldn't launch it in countries where the Kinect didn't have the language downloaded for those countries to work in. Because like, why would you launch this in say Indonesia and it's all English? So it's just like it's so mind-boggling why they thought that was like a great idea. It was just the absolute worst business decision.
Yeah, I think it was the execution too. Like I never got into the Kinect. I got it for the kids. I think they looked at it and I think they jumped around like twice and that was it. It never really kind of took off here. But kind of when I look at it, it's like, I when I look back on it and you kind of really look at the details of things, I think it was just a lot about how it was integrated. It was more about the strategy, right? It was just kind of them losing focus of the, the foundation of things. Like if Kinect would have remained just a side piece, if it would have just continued to be like another little gimmick thing on the side, I think it would have been fine as that. I don't think it would have the resentment it has today. But it's because they tried to force it down the throats.
But OBM, they weren't without reason though to do that, because you got to remember, like the Kinect's like the fastest selling or something peripheral or it did really well. So I guess it kind of made sense, right? Like it's,
I guess,
but I think the problem was,
that's what I was saying, is success gave them this false confidence that it was going to be something that they could actually like they had the idea that, and this part's true, that you can't really go all in on it and grow with this unless you make sure that everyone has it. Therefore, you're not going to get third-party developers to make games implementing these features if not everyone's going to actually have the console, because then you're already limiting your actual demographic that's going to play your game, right? So they felt like they had to force that in there so that they could get more developers and not just their own in-house stuff. I mean, they bought Rare and they made Rare do it, right? So it's not, outside of just having Rare and other second-party developers that you published make games for, like Rise was supposed to be one of those kind of games too, that if it's really popular and it's really hitting, then you can get like, say, a Capcom to do it, or a EA to make a game for it. But it's just that wasn't going to happen, and they really hurt themselves in that first year. Was just abysmal. The sales were horrible, and then once they finally debundled it was too late at that point.
Yeah, it was. It was over. It was like it was. You might as well have just kind of said generations already done. At that point in time, and that's so that's when some other things started to go down. But like when I think back at it, like I hear what you're saying. The thing that the thing they lacked foresight on back then, though, that I think they realize now is that it's not just about what you have in your console. Just because you have it just because you have it in your console as standard doesn't mean it's going to get used. Not when
Mm-hmm.
the competition doesn't have it, not when people with PCs don't have it. And so that's the part that kind of always threw me off. It's like, yeah, you're making it standard here, but it's not standard everywhere else, unless something, especially in this day and age, where these big publishers who have the money to kind of do something with something like that, they want to make something that they can, quick, cheaply port everywhere else. And as long as that was a thing, as long as they had competition across the way, that was never going to happen. So yeah, it was definitely a miscalculation. And it was the success of it was the thing that got into their heads. And it was, I think, ultimately it was the reason why they were, that generation, as far as competition goes, was kind of over before it ever began. Honestly, yeah. I mean, they're lucky to even live through that. I think had that been a Sega, had that been a Nintendo, people buy it.
Nintendo would have been.
Yeah. But had that been like somebody else that was not backed by a mega corporation, they probably that would have been the end of it, But they,
the
fact they survived it was pretty.
Yeah, and there were some okay games, I think, on the Xbox One. I mean, it's funny, I think about it now.
Absolutely.
I mean, like Sunset Overdrive was I thought was a good game. It was great to see Insomniac kind of, branch out from Sony and actually make an exclusive. But there's definitely some misses there. Halo 5 comes to mind. We saw, Gears 4 and 5, with the Coalition, and then, I mean, I can't think of anything else really stands out.
That's about it.
I can't. Yeah.
And Enrique, to your point there, or kind of going back to what we were saying before, this is the last thing I'll say on it. But, as we look at the Kinect being kind of like the downfall of the early Xbox One, I think that if you look at it, there really wasn't a lot of, things kind of went downhill from there. But I look at that downfall as kind of like now why they can bounce back the other way. So that's why it's always good to have competition keeping these companies honest, But I think that the failures of the Kinect from Xbox One is why they now have, I mean, it's probably why they're, focusing on game, a lot of other things that they're doing as aggressively as they are. So there's always a flip side, right?
No, I would agree with that. I mean, that's kind of where they're.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead, man.
I was gonna say also with the Xbox One, not only with the Kinect, but they were so interested in making the Xbox One the all-in-one entertainment center. TV, movies, sports. Mm-hmm. It just didn't work.
Yeah. That also bled into how they develop games as well, because I think the reason why we never got a sequel to Quantum Break is because it was so expensive. It was extremely expensive, and they did like full-on like episodes, like television episodes that were.
I like the TV episodes, by the way.
I mean, look,
I thought it was good too.
It was. I enjoyed Quantum Break. I thought it was a good game, but it didn't sell well, and they kind of put themselves in a bad spot because they were so upside down versus how much it earned versus what they spent in the budget to make that game with all these big time actors, with these actual full bore productions, Hollywood productions and stuff like that. That stuff was super expensive, especially at that time. And I mean, now AAA games are on average the cost of Quantum Break now, but back then most games weren't at that price range, and that by itself just basically killed any chance that they would do a sequel, which really sucks because it had nothing that I just said has anything to do with how good the game is. Yeah. It's all about budget and the fact that people didn't buy it and resonate with it.
Yeah. Well, I will say this, just to kind of shift away from this topic, but go to another one. But I'll say this: like they're definitely in a better place today. I think we'd all agree with that, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
absolutely.
I think the future looks very bright for them with these acquisitions, and if anything, if you're to gauge kind of, you look at what they've done recently. I know Game Logic, you and I have talked a lot about this behind the scenes about the fact that there's 2 first-party studios now that have Game of the Year nominations, right? One being Psychonauts 2, the other being Deathloop. And then the acquisitions, they're definitely in a better place. Like this is good that they've done that. I mean, people can debate, whether or not they want Microsoft to buy more studios or not, and whether that's good. But whatever the case is, they have definitely put themselves in a better position now, and where they could deliver potentially really compelling content to people in the Xbox ecosystem. So it's gonna be fun to see what they do over the next couple of years. On the Xbox. Yeah.
A lot of that has to do with the fact that Microsoft is in a better position now, right? I mean, and I get it, and I understand it. We often talk about, not we, but the gaming community, I think, often talks about Xbox as if it's its own thing, right? But the reality is that, as the fate of Microsoft goes, so goes the Xbox division. And in fact, it's probably inaccurate that so many people talk about Microsoft and Sony when what's really going on is it's Xbox and PlayStation, right? Because they're different entities to a certain extent. So, I mean, through that Xbox One era, right? I mean, so your leadership that you had in place in the Xbox era was, the guys you mentioned, Jay Allard, but then also Peter Moore coming in, right? And then we had the bathtub, right, during the mattress. Right. and then when Matrick left, Ballmer took over directly, right? Yeah. Which was just not a sustainable formula. And Phil Spencer doesn't get named head of Xbox, right, until almost a year after Matrick has left. And he's named by Satya, right, after Satya's named CEO, right? So we had a long period where just the guns were not going to be firing on all cylinders until some things were made. And even when Spencer was appointed, he wasn't appointed, right, during that time. The Xbox groups were separate entities. So the game studios division, the hardware division, the development, like the studio relations division, all those things were separate. So it wasn't until Spencer came in and after gathered up under single leadership and single accountability, and we started gaining, right, a lot more of the efficiencies and things to push things forward. But it took a while to turn all that around.
Yeah, and Game Live, just like one last point on that. Actually, it was interesting. Like if you go back and look at some old articles, when Satya Nadella came in, like 2014, they had him on record. He said, Xbox isn't one of our core things. He said that straight up, and it was something sitting on the outside, and a lot of people thought it was potentially on the chopping block, and it was, because actually, if you heard Phil Spencer after that, he's even admitted, Satya was asking, why the heck do we even have this here? Like, what's this doing for Microsoft? So, it wasn't until 2017 that they officially kind of changed that. Somehow, Phil was able to sell him a vision of something that tied into the company. So you're right. At the end of the day, it really does come down to the very top, right? Like if they don't buy in, it don't matter. It's like, it's like any sports team. If the general manager doesn't care about winning, it's kind of hard for everybody beneath them.
They're like the Lions.
Yeah, like the freaking Lions, man.
Yeah. And I tie a lot of that to, a really good lieutenant, right, figures out and understands what his boss wants and what his priorities are, his or her, right, and aligns their vision to that. And so the vision Phil sold Satya was the vision that aligned with where Microsoft was heading. And Phil talked to him about services and the cloud. And he started moving the division in that direction. And that's what has enabled, and Satya started seeing where there could be value in the Xbox division in the greater vision of Microsoft as a corporation and as a software company. And Phil still got what he wants, right, to a certain extent. He keeps talking about, there's always going to be premier hardware because that's a core element and a core desire of our office. But we're going to pair it with this service and this cloud stuff. And that's going to enable us to kind of shift the battleground and start playing a different game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good point.
That's a great point. Yeah. And which kind of someone says don't talk bad about Detroit. I've been rooting. I'm here 40 minutes outside the city, and I've been a homer all my life, man. I don't know how to root for other teams. I hear you, man.
So my Lions, my Pistons, the Pistons and Red Wings got hope now. But, man, we've had some bad sports in the last few years. So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. We talk about, the acquisitions and everything, and there's been a lot of uproar about Forza Horizon 5 not being nominated for Game of the Year. Frankly, I don't care. Like, I really don't. Like, it didn't get nominated. Okay, but people are really, going take, and it seems like this happens every year with the Game of the Year nominees for the Game Awards. And I think that's unfortunate because I really think that the award show is, really a celebration of gaming. Like, there was an article, probably the most scathing article that I've seen about this was on Windows Central by Jez Gordon. And, I've read it, and I just didn't, I don't agree with a lot of what he's saying here, that, that it's kind of a, that the game is award, that the snub of Forza Horizon 5 is somehow a disservice to the entire gaming industry. I don't, and to say that it's a marketing event, nothing more. Well, yeah, in a lot of sense, it is a marketing event because you are getting sponsors and to sponsor this event, and you're trying to get butts in the seats. I think you brought that up in a conversation I had with you, Game Logic as well. That in fact it kind of is a marketing event, and I believe that was you, right, who mentioned that. I was talking to someone else, so many people about this. So it was, and I thought it was a great point because it is. It's not. And people keep comparing it to the Oscars. Like, you gotta remember, the Oscars. It's not to say like the Oscars has a governing body to it, right? So maybe the more accurate comparison here is, if you're going to compare anything to that's game related in terms of award shows to the Oscars, it's probably going to be more like, what is it, BAFTA? I think it's called. I forget what it's called. British something.
Yeah,
whatever.
and I'd probably line it up a little more with DICE or maybe even GDC, right? I mean, those are. I mean, probably DICE, right? Where the DICE awards are administered and overseen by. It's AIAS. I can't remember the acronym right off the top of my head, but it's a Art and Interactive Sciences Association or whatever. But it's a non-profit body, right, that establishes these rules, theoretically driven from a centric ethos that is not around like sponsors and financing and monetization, right, and deals that are made with the industry people who back it to, propel game sales during the holiday sale seasons, right? That's not what that show is about, and that I think is maybe the closest thing to, I guess, the aspiration that people are trying to put on the shoulders of the VGAs. Yeah,
no, that's well said, and I know that the Windows Central article was updated with something that I shared with you earlier, Game Logic, about the why, basically what happened with Forza Horizon 5, and it's and the fact that look these games, I mean, it could have been eligible for Game of the Year, right? But it wasn't because it missed the deadline, right? And that was
which game missed the deadline? Forza?
Yeah, Forza did. Yeah. So and actually, Jez Gordon actually does he updated his article, but I shared.
But it's nominated in other categories.
Yeah. So what happens was okay. So let me hold on a sec here.
So it didn't completely miss the timeline. It's just that its arrival was highly compressed up against the deadline for the overall award. So I think it showed up, and I think the first ballots had to be in, I want to say, fourth. BRAP was what you sent me.
So basically how it's explained to me is like, a game has to hit, and I'm not going to share who shared this with me, but it's somebody in the industry who basically said the game has to hit certain critical mass. One person per outlet probably played it for review, but they're saying that's not enough. That's not going to be enough to get on the ballot per se. You need multiple people per site to be pushing it. And if you have to turn in your ballot by November 4th, Forza didn't come out until November 9th, right?
Yeah.
And now you can update your ballot through November 19th, but it doesn't say that up front. Actually, it's November 11th. So it doesn't say that. It's in the fine print where it says you can update your ballot by November 11th, but not everyone saw that. So timing is the biggest culprit here, right? And why this game may potentially not been nominated for Game of the Year. Even that being said, I think if Yeah,
I
go
want
ahead.
to jump on that just a little bit because I want to maybe offer a counter hypothesis, right? Like,
Sure.
I don't, from my perspective, I don't put on the shoulder the compressed timeline for whether or not Forza Horizon 5 gets into the GOTY category, right? I think even if you pull that back and they have more time with it, right? If we think about and talk about like the personalities, right? And the people that maybe we listen to, or the sites that we see writing things throughout the year. Even if you go back all the way back to like my PC gamer days, right? In the early aughts, right? The guy who reviewed racing and simulation games at PC, right, was Andy Mahood. He was one guy. He was a subcontractor, so he wasn't even a full-time employee on the magazine, right? And he was the guy who reviewed all their simulation games. I don't think that model has vastly changed around the industry, right, within the media. There's a very, very small number of people, percentage-wise, across the media who are actually playing those games. And I concur with the polish and the overall evolution of Forza Horizon 5, but I don't think that the groundswell mass momentum across the media journalists who comprise the voting body for the VGAs are the type of people where 50-60% of them, right, are going to get behind Forza Horizon 5, because I just don't think that genre is in their wheelhouse and their bailiwick.
Yeah,
I think basically what you're saying is that there's no chance a racing game is ever going to get nominated for Game of the Year, which is basically what I've been saying for months now.
Yeah, and you know what? To be fair, Gran Turismo is not going. It could be a 9.5 next year. It's still not. It's probably
not going to get nominated. No.
Yeah. You know, and there's some points, and I understand. Like, I don't know. I almost feel weird talking about this only because I haven't even tweeted about it because I just don't feel that passionately about it.
You had a great point though, Obi, and when I talked to you about this earlier.
It's because I always have great points whenever I talk. But no, like I mean, basically, first of all, it's Jeff Keighley's show. I'm not gonna talk too passionately about things. I haven't played every game on there, and I do feel like it is a little bit disingenuous for me to like get on a soapbox if I haven't played everything that's been there to say this doesn't deserve it. And this, I mean, there's some things that kind of threw me off just based on assumptions, right? But and I would argue that if I had a Game Award show, which I don't, if I did, well, first of all, probably only be Halo and Dark Souls on the ballot. But if I had a show, I would say that. Hopefully your Game of the Year could include everything. So whatever's the best in any category, would have a chance because, I think games that are beloved for gameplay should be considered just like games that are beloved for stories. That's my opinion. But at the same time, I'm not necessarily like passionate about forcing that on Jeff Keighley's show or whoever's voting on it. If they want games to represent a certain thing, that's up to them. And if people don't like it, go start your own damn show. And at the end of the day, we do know that the process, like just to like what Gaming Logic was saying, is it. There's the process. I guess I'll just say it this way, like. It's flawed from the standpoint, like if you're trying to compare it to the movie industry, it doesn't have the same level. It can't have the same level of consistency, number one, because you can't, like when you're watching movies, like pretty much everybody who's going to vote on a movie probably watched every movie, right? Like, and had a chance to sit down and consider every single one of those. That's never going to happen with the system that is as it is today. And, we know what the system is. It's not like they're not being transparent about it or like hiding how they basically throw it out there. And we saw, today, I think Blessing even said, he says, hey, like our guy, got this many hours with it. And, it wasn't enough to basically say that it should be on the ballot over something else that we knew that we felt very strongly about being on the ballot. And so there's this timing thing. With gaming, because games can take 20, 40, 80 hours to like really understand if it's a great game or not, not everybody's going to vote. It's going to get to play every single game. So that's one of the flaws. I mean, if I were to suggest one thing about Keighley's show, like one thing like I think would help it, and I don't think it's going to eliminate all the challenges with consistency, and honestly, I don't care that much. But if I were to say one thing, it's like they would have it like at the beginning of the following year, give these people time to actually play these games that come out late in the year, because I feel like almost anything that launches in November is going to have a hard time getting that engagement with people, or making sure that it's consistent across the board. So there is these flaws with the system. But then again, I watch the Game Awards for the commercials. And the other thing is I do hope that like maybe developers that don't get as much run get a chance to shine a little bit. So that is one thing I do like, because I think, with the attendance he's starting to build, like he does get a lot of eyes. I think it is cool for the guys that make It Takes Two, for Tim Schafer's studio to finally get like some spotlight, and for people to know that studio's name, for Arcane, who's generally their games commercially usually bomb, despite the fact they're constantly highly rated. I think it is cool that some of those developers will have eyes on them, and people might go, maybe I should check that out, but and we know Playground, and we know that Insomniac don't need it. Like, people know who they are. I don't think the Game Awards is really going to affect their sales or their bonuses or anything like that, but it could help some of the smaller developers. So I was more bummed last year when Ori didn't get in there. Right. So, when Moon Studios didn't get that run, but but other than that, like, I don't, and I think it would have been cool, like, if House Marquee, who's kind of, coming into their own, would have got some run this year. But other than that, I don't feel super strongly about it. I'm going to watch it for the commercials. And I hope that, Tim Schafer gets some more, credit, because I think that dude kind of deserves it.
Yeah, and I don't inherently disagree with, a lot of the things that you offered to us. And I think most of my pushback on a lot of these notions have been, I get that there are arguments, but I think that the arguments are foundational, right? I don't expect to take a bunch of Republicans and throw them in a room and tell them to vote, and that they're all flipping all of a sudden in November vote Democrat, right? There's certain inherent outcomes that we have to expect based on the assembly of the voting body.
Yeah,
I agree that there are some foundational concepts that go back to, like, move the show, change the voting body membership, determine whether or not it's representative. That, like you said, that is the discussion of an inherently different show than the VGAs are. And so a lot of my pushback has been two major things. One, people banging their gavels on Twitter trying to get attention don't understand what the VGAs are and how they're comprised and how they're put together and what purpose they serve. And I know what you're saying, in the effort to kind of arbitrate, some different takes, right? But the people who are, like, really being really aggressive about it, like, when they say, they should change, like, when the show exists when it exists, and it's backed by Microsoft, Sony, EA, Activision, because it can be used as a platform to drive their holiday sales. They're never gonna, You're never gonna, like, support it being in January, because then window, right?
Yeah,
so
you're right.
So that's that thing. And then the second part of it that people don't understand, who are yelping about it on Twitter, is they don't understand all of the different game awards that happen throughout award season and how they're each comprised and the different purposes that they serve. One of the key things that I take into context when I consider the VGAs is I put them in context with the DICE Awards and GDC and some of the other shows, right? Because those are industry trade shows where the voting members are other creators around the industry, right? When people are talking about Forza Horizon 5 being snubbed, I think there's a reason for it being snubbed when we talk about the game itself, but I'll take that on, at a different opportunity. But Resident Evil 2 Remake was snubbed a few years ago, and you follow the reason, because you look at the other award shows, not just the VGAs, what you will see is that the actual creators in the industry didn't ascribe as much as high a value to a remake, right? Which is a thing that I've contended is a truism about the industry, as a brand new IP, right? You don't get that if you just look at
You
the
mean
VGAs.
snubbed as in, like, didn't win or get a nomination? Because it was nominated.
Yeah, it didn't accumulate actual GOTY awards, right? It was given nods in a few cases. It was bunch of other categories other than GOTY.
It was a Game of the Year nomination. Resident Evil 2 Remake was a Game of the Year nomination.
Yeah,
the year it came out.
Yeah, that's what I said, or I meant to say. It was a nominee, but it didn't accumulate a lot of actual wins across the multiple industry shows.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah, I mean, look, it is what it is. Like this, it's funny because like some of the comparisons I see to stuff like the Oscars is hilarious because like the Oscars has its own like controversies where there's like there are a lot of like studios and directors and producers campaigning for movies to win things. So it's like it's not even like that's not even like if you want to say like do those movies win legitly? Probably not, right? So it's just this whole thing is what it is. It's just the Keeley Awards. It's the most popular award show. That's why it's the one that everyone talks about. Yeah. It's the one where you'll see a console get revealed. It's the one where you'll see other games get revealed. It is what it is. That's why it's the most popular one that everyone talks about. But it's also you gotta take into account what it's there for. It's there to market games. It's there to push sales. It's there to reveal new things. And Jeff Keighley has done a great job in engineering all of that. Now, I said it multiple times before this came out, and people, I guess, just didn't want to either they didn't hear me say it or they just ignored it. But a racing game's never going to get nominated for Game of the Year. It's just not. Because it's a racing game. Certain genres just don't get nominated for this kind of stuff.
Especially a racing game built on a modified version of the last generation engine, and that has actually some of the same screens and UIs that are exactly the same as the last version, and has almost exactly the same as the third version. I mean, it's a great evolution and a perfection of their formula. But I would be a complete hypocrite, at least for my own thing, if I spoke out against the notion of Miles Morales getting a nod last year when I contended the problem I have with that is that it's built on the bones of Spider-Man 2018, right? And then tried to stand for Forza Horizon 5. It's a great game. It's a great evolution. It's tons of fun. People should go out and play it. But arguing that it should be Game of the Year invokes many more parameters and variables than I think other people are pulling into the conversation because they don't know. They're just arguing about a controversy to make it a controversy.
Well, you make some really good point. I think if people were saying that, I think that would probably be a more, and that's the thing. If people were saying that's why it wasn't going to get nominated, I think then that's a more, I don't know if that'd be more acceptable or whatever. I think like that's a very logical, sensical argument to say why you wouldn't make something. I think where people were getting like, pissy about it. And again, like I said, I don't care that much, but just to kind of, make sure that I frame, what the other side of the argument is, fairly. I think they were saying, well, we shouldn't be genre gatekeeping. Now the thing is, I think but you do bring up a good point that maybe it isn't discussed. Some genres are always going to be just kind of iterative, right? Like there's only so much you can do, with racing, with sports, even with most shooters, like if it's a sequel, right? There's only so much you can do to really make it feel super fresh, I guess. So I think that's all, because with a narrative game, and I would argue like Ratchet, at least on the surface, I haven't played it, but at least on the surface, and Resident Evil on the surface, they look similar. They look like they're kind of iterative from the previous versions. But I think that because you have different stories, maybe it doesn't feel that way. So I'm trying to like figure out both sides of this. Like I said, I think there is a conversation to be said that should, all genres be considered. Yes. But if people want to say but for it to be considered, it's got to be more of a, a bigger change. Like you're saying, like, the UI, there's a lot of things I do feel the same. I do think it does everything better, but you could also still argue it is just, it's still highly iterative. And if that was the pushback, I think if reviewers that, or people in the media came out and said, hey, that's why I didn't put it there. Hey, it's a fantastic game, but it was too iterative. That's why I didn't vote for it. I think that it would really change some of the conversation. But right now, because nobody's saying anything, they're just assuming it's because it's a genre thing.
Well, listen, you're never going to make everybody happy. There's games at the beginning of the year that people forgot about, like Hitman 3. That was I think everybody just forgot about that game because it came out right at the beginning of the year. Yeah. And as far as Horizon, it's a great game. I love it, but I don't need a game to be nominated to win an award to have fun with it. So I feel bad, for the developers to get that extra bonus or that they might get, but the notoriety. But it's a great game. Everybody realizes it's a great game. They don't need an award to prove that.
Yeah, I'm actually in the camp that I think all genres should be considered. I think if you have a game that's the most when it comes to people pick and choose when Metacritic is important, but here we are. Here's a game that has the highest Metacritic score in 2021. It's got X amount of people who are playing it and enjoying it, and it's not considered. I do think that's it kind of sucks, especially if you work for Playground. If I work for Playground, if I worked on the game and I didn't get considered for Game of the Year, I might be having some words on Twitter about it. But all that said, what should happen and what things should be doesn't mean what they are. So the world, it should be a fair world, but it's not.
Bobby Kotick should not have a job, right?
But he does, right? So it is what it is, and it's just I see some of these narratives out here, and I'm kind of wondering, I'm like, where was this energy for Death's Door, a game that I think should have been nominated for Game of the Year. But for Jeff Keighley's Video Game Awards show, there's only one token indie. You're only going to get one in there, and it takes two this year. Ori didn't get in last year because Hades got in, and the year before that, another indie didn't get in because Celeste got in. So it is always going to be that format. There's always going to be one Nintendo game, no matter how trash or good it is. There's always going to be one Sony exclusive game, no matter what that game is, and there's always going to be one indie that should be just happy that you're here because you're getting a boost of sales because millions of people didn't even know your game existed. You're not winning, so just be happy that you're nominated. That is the Game of the Year nomination. It's the same every single year. It is a format. It never changes. I don't understand why people get shocked by this. When has a racer been nominated for Jeff Keighley's Video Game Awards show? Don't hold your breath. You're not going to find one because there isn't one. So it's just this is what's going to happen. And going forward in the future, you got a 92 rated racer that didn't get nominated. When Forza Horizon 6 comes out, and unless it's including a revenge story where your driver gets his family and his dog killed in the intro, and you got a race to get revenge for your family, it ain't getting nominated.
Max
all right,
Payne with cars.
Well, that sounds like a good game, man. You should pitch that. Then.
Oh, bro, I have it.
Do you get bullet time too?
Playground hit me up because I got a whole entire script for you that you can use. I got applied and everything. All I want is 2% of revenue. That's all I want. But we can talk. Yeah, I got a working title. Forza Horizon 6, Drifting for Revenge. It's we can work with it.
Drifting for Revenge. I love the title.
Stone. But man, I'm saying I got plot points.
That's a lot of thought.
I got a crisis point. Where the driver loses his will to win when he thinks he can't do it, and then I got a whole surprise at the end when it turns out the main antagonist is actually the driver from Forza Horizon 3.
Oh my
I know
God.
you're
Revealed.
More thought into that than your Pokemon take. Oh, wow.
I know your script is OP, Slimmo, but I will say I hope Playground does not try to Need for Speed the Forza Horizon series, because that has never turned out well when they've tried to put their hokey stories and full motion video into the racing game. But I just want to I've seen that take also where there's this notion that I'm maybe extending a little bit of the descriptions I've seen, but I'd see where there would be value in not having a nominated GOTY, but just having here are all the genres. You vote, they vote for who wins the genres, and then we final four bracket, right? Showdown between all of the top winners from all of the categories. That would be one way to do it. Would be a different show. I just want to say, because I've seen this a little bit on Twitter and other places as well. And I think people mean it a little more colloquially than they're actually saying it. Forza Horizon 5 is not the top rated game on Metacritic for releases this year. It's 6th. There are 5 other games ahead of it. No one has really argued or championed for any of those games to be in game of the year. So I don't kind of get that.
Which games were they?
Disco Elysium, The Final Cut, The House of Freedom, Organa, Dreams of the Revenant's Edition.
That's a
yeah, I know.
It can't even be nominated this year because
I get that, but my point is that when people are saying it's the highest rated game on Metacritic, it's not, right? And yes, Disco Elysium is a remake, but there are 4. Well, Hades is a remake too on next gen. But my point is that there are other games, right, that are ranked ahead of it, and to say that it's the highest rated game isn't just as accurate as people claim. I think they're just using that as a reason to prop up their.
That's kind of. I don't know about the other games that actually released this year, launched this year, that are rated higher, but those are a little nitpicky because, like, if it's not even.
The whole argument's nitpicky, right?
Well, it is, but it's just like I think mostly people are just talking about simply games that have launched this year, and that game in particular, Forza Horizon. If it's in the conversation, if it was nominated, I don't think there are people like, oh my God, why is Forza Horizon 5 nominated here? Like, what the, like, I don't think there would be anything like that, right? But that it's not nominated, I also kind of feel like people should just understand. It's a racing game, man. Like, it's not going to get nominated, yo. It's just not. Like, it could be a 99 on Metacritic. It's still a racing game at the end, and it's still not going to get nominated.
And there are some of the comments in the chat, right, that I just haven't gained. Like, one of the most highly played games. I mean, it's not to take anything away from it. It's a great game. But when you point at the metric of, like, how many people play, it's on us, right? I expect that more than the normal number of people will be playing the game. Game design. And I don't want to throw shade at the game. There's some detractions, right? The game design has been, I don't want to say watered down, but like it's an activity-based racer. It is not a racing game. So if you talk to people in the racing community who are really amped about simulations, right? And I got a Thrustmaster T300 RS racing wheel and pedal set, right? 5 flight control systems around here. It's not a simulation game, right? It's watered down, the Crew 2 Test Drive Unlimited kind of that's made to appeal to the masses, right? And then recommended for Racing of the Year. We didn't get these same arguments when we had Dirt Rally, 2.0. I quite honestly think that F1 2021 is a better racing game than Forza Horizon. So I think there's just a lot of reasons to kind of pull this thing apart and reasons why arguably Forza Horizon 5 wouldn't have gotten in anyway, in addition to kind of all the more obvious ones.
Yeah, that's a great point, Game Logic. And I think the unfortunate part of all this too is that, one, I've seen some very bad takes on this. And I think that stems from people not being aware of what the Game Awards truly are and how they truly operate behind the scenes. And I think some of it is because there's some people out there that just I hate to say this, they want to win for their console, right? They more specifically on the Xbox side, they want something to prop up and say, hey, our console's just as good as yours, or the other side.
My plastic is better than your plastic.
Yeah. Why is it that you're not happy about 2 Xbox Game Studios first-party games being nominated? That's more first-party games from one platform than the other platforms. Why aren't you happy about that?
Yeah.
Oh, it's because those games are also available on PlayStation. That's why.
Yeah, no, and this
is not about Forza.
No, it's a lot of it's about console warring. Like a lot of it's
console warring.
Yeah,
that's what it's about. Yeah,
and that's what
that's like most of the
people,
conversation on Twitter. Anyway,
and the other thing, but the other thing too, Obi, was that I've seen people call into question the integrity of the awards, which I think is stupid. Like that's just dumb. Like somebody actually gave me an example that when I asked for, show me where there's a lack of integrity in the Game Awards, and they gave me the example of Overwatch beating Uncharted 4. I'm like, that's not an example of integrity as much as you just didn't agree with Overwatch winning. That's your opinion, which is fine. You're entitled to that opinion, but that's not.
I also don't get
that's
the
not
whole
the lack of integrity
insinuation that like Overwatch is like a C. Overwatch isn't a racer. So why is that even brought up in the conversation as a talking point? Well, Overwatch won in X year.
Because people look at Overwatch.
Can you race in
just,
Overwatch? Like what?
No,
what is
but
this lie? That doesn't make any sense.
People think Overwatch is just a simplistic shooter. They don't understand its
they
impact.
also didn't play it.
Yeah, exactly. It did have some
clearly.
It did have a story. It had an impact in the industry within
it does have
that
a
hero shooter genre. Yeah, exactly. And
this show that people don't play games that they talk about. Overwatch has a story. Before Overwatch even came out, Blizzard launched like a dozen trailers, like full-on animated trailers explaining the backstories to like all of the original characters that you could play with. There is a story there.
Yeah.
When you talk, like, these people have, they talk about games that they don't play.
Yeah, and I think people. Go ahead, Selma.
And it's part of the reason why some of them don't want to share their gamer tag. But I'm not gonna get into that.
We're not gonna do that, man.
But I'm not gonna get into that. But it's just like the whole thing is like disingenuous conversations, because what the root of all of this is, you want to brag about there being an exclusive Xbox game that gets in, and they still like, and it's fueled by the other side fanboys talking about how there's a drought of Xbox exclusive games or Xbox ecosystem exclusive games, because it's always going to be on PC, right? That gets into the game of the year conversation. And as soon as they try to bring up Psychonauts 2 and Deathloop, the counter argument is going to be those games were in development before Microsoft acquired the studio, so therefore Microsoft can't use it as credit, blah, 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 blah. These are stupid fanboy arguments. Right. Stop getting into stupid fanboy arguments, then you wouldn't be upset over a game that you had nothing to do with.
Right. I want to go back to the Windows
nominated for Game of the Year. Period.
I want to go back to the Windows Central article, right, where in the comment that you mentioned, BRAP, about like the person who talked about like not having integrity. So actually, they have better integrity than the Central article, which was that somehow gamers should be empowered and we should democratize the VGAs more so that as much weight isn't given to the journalists, right? What I mentioned on Twitter is, and look, I'll kind of out myself. I spend at a minimum, roughly $1,400 a year on gaming software, on gaming titles. That doesn't include, right, season pass, battle pass stuff that I buy, or hardware. 2 games a month, right? Even with doing that, at best, I maybe hit 10 to 20% of what's on offer in the gaming industry each year. I say that if we keep using the Metacritic yardstick, since the people who made this argument seem to think that's acceptable, okay, fine, I'll go with it. There's 241 games that are rated 80 or above on Metacritic that I would argue, are in the pool of conversation for nominations, right? So you're talking about handing this out to the public who doesn't play, just as Slomo said, right? Doesn't play a large enough sample population, aggregate credible opinion, right? In my opinion, of how those games compare against each other, right? Then the other thing on top of that is the person who integrity. The thing you would have to figure out is how to identify each of the voting entities across the general public and credential them so that you could ensure that people weren't putting in multiple votes. Even the way the VGAs does it, right, is they federate those identities across Twitch, with Twitch, Google, Facebook, and Twitter, right? And I don't know, I voted today, I don't know that having signed in with my Twitch credentials, I can't turn around and Google credentials and make an additional vote. Right. And I further don't know that I can't, even if tunnel out and right, that I can't vote as an thousands of problems to render an accurate and general public vote with sufficient integrity and equal integrity to what's done with the VGAs with 103 voters who, are all known entities whose identities can't be repudiated, right? These are kind of some basic tenets of like how you have to do digital federation and credentialing. Again, this is people clamoring for change don't understand.
So yeah, and I think you bring up a good point. I do want to say like just one thing really quick, because I think that maybe there's a lot of different God. And again, this is something again I don't care that much about, but I just want to kind of straighten out something that I think there's a lot of different arguments happening at once. So like I agree, Somo. Like I didn't expect it to ever be in there, and I agree with you, Gaming Logic, that I don't think there's something that there's like this real easy quick fix. But I do want to just kind of really quickly, just because I was reading the article while you guys were talking, which I didn't read before. I do know I kind of assumed where Jez was coming from because I listened to him on Xbox too, and I think his whole point was it's really to like what you were saying, Slomo, like, hey, a racing game is never going to be considered. His point was hey, they should be, right?
Right. And that's fine. I get that.
Yeah.
I get that completely. Yeah.
Yeah.
If
so
you are the argument that
yeah.
a racing game should be considered, I have no problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah.
I actually agree with that myself. I think all games should be considered for game of the year, regardless of genre. But
I think that's like, so there's different things going on here, right? Like you get the Twitter arguments, people fighting because it's system wars, but and him basically, his point, I'm reading it here. It's like basically like, hey, that they do bias towards cinematic action games, and they do. And to like Gaming Logic said, that's not something new, right? That's been going on for many, many years. We kind of know that's kind of what the preferences are. Mm-hmm. So like, what's the solution? There's probably not any. It's a marketing show. It's Keely's show. He sends it to the people that he trusts to vote. We know how they're going to vote. Like Slobo said.
But here's the thing, though. But I don't mean to interrupt. But here's the thing. Like I agree with him with regards to what Jez said about maybe there's a conversation for shooters to, or not shooters, but racers to be including Game of the Year nominations. But the part that I disagree with is that this somehow that the system is so broken, or that it's it somehow discredits the industry, or I'm paraphrasing kind of what was said in the article, but just that idea that it's
he's a disservice, yeah.
That it's a disservice. Like that's not really. I don't agree with that. It's not a disservice because a certain game didn't get nominated. And to say that it's only cinematic games. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we certainly see that most of those games are cinematic experiences or whatever the case is, but there are some other games in there, and unfortunately the one game that's being overshadowed, which I think is the bigger story here, and I think Game Logic and I talked about this, I think the bigger story here is that a game that was initially crowdfunded in Psychonauts 2, and is a very small studio up until being purchased by Microsoft, is in there for Game of the Year. That to me is the bigger story, and one that's unfortunately being overshadowed. Like that's something that should be talked about and championed and celebrated, as opposed to people grabbing their pitchforks and saying this thing lacks integrity. I forget what the that that's a disservice to the entire gaming industry. Like those are very strong words that I think are probably not.
Think if anything is a disservice to the gaming industry with this award show, is any nomination where Cyberpunk 2077 is present.
That's funny.
Disservice to the
game.
That's what I'm saying.
That's where I disagree. That's where I disagree with, and like I said, I like Jez. I think he's very genuine where he comes from, but that's probably where I would disagree with him, because I don't even think it's that. I don't think it has that much. I don't know what the right word, because I'm going to like almost discredit it. I like what Keely does in terms of trying to bring some like spotlight, right? It's something to the industry. I think it is a fun thing, but at the same time, I don't think it necessarily means I don't know what the right word is here, but the substance of it, right? Like the real substance of being able to attach, and we talked about the Oscars earlier. Like, I don't feel like being nominated or getting a Keely Award is something that, you put on your resume necessarily, I guess. I feel like it is a little bit of a fluffy thing. It's just a fun thing. I don't think it's as serious as people are taking it. And that's where I kind of like differ from everybody else. I'm like, you guys are really taking it very serious. I don't think it's that serious.
That's where I didn't, and that's kind of where I didn't agree with the Windows Central article. I felt like it was taking it a little bit too serious. And also, like, the fact that, in other forms of entertainment, like, there's different types of shows, right? Like, if you're looking for something with game developers, we have that. It's already there in the industry. It's DICE, and I forget the other one that, Game Logic mentioned earlier. There's the BAFTA Awards. I mean, and to me, the Game Awards has always been kind of like a big, more or less party celebration of the gaming industry. And I think that that's being overshadowed again, and it's a shame because, it's like, I know Lemieux says you can't please everyone, but I think it's unfortunate, like in the gaming industry or gaming community, it seems like, when one side feels slighted, they start crying like petulant little children. It's like, come on, it's like, this is supposed to be fun. It's gaming. It's not that serious. And, to Keeley's credit, look, this guy's working his ass off, and whether you like the awards or not, that's not the point here. The point is that he's trying to bring, some more visibility per se to the industry. And I think his version of the show is better than what was previous done, which he was a part of when they had Samuel L. Jackson, I think, hosting on, I forget what TV network that was, but I guess my
Spike TV.
Spike TV, thank you. But my point is that, it's unfortunate because, it's a celebration of the industry. Like he has musicians perform, musical scores from, different video games. Like I remember, don't forget the Red Dead Redemption 2 musical score performance they had live. That was great. That was awesome to see that musical score performed live. Then there's the guy who showed up, who was drunk, who was like, F the Oscars, whatever, like, like it's just, to me, it's a celebration, and it does embrace kind of the diversity. And I think that's something else I disagree with the article where it said it wasn't really, embracing diversity per se. But that sure does embrace diversity, because look at like I don't care about esports, right? But esports is we have esports manager of the year. I don't care about that, but that is part of the industry. That's part of the diversity that makes up this industry of, esports, indies, simulating games. I forget all the other, nominees they have, or nominations, outside of Game of the Year. But there's some really interesting ones that I would never think of. I think there's like best musical score, or best like innovative game or something. I don't know. But
the fact is that Keeley has brought credibility to the games industry. The industry that we love. He's brought just credibility to it, which is really important, I think.
Yeah, no, I think it's that kind of like mainstream thing, and
yeah, exactly.
So,
yeah.
But I think that unfortunately, like this whole Forza thing and that's fun. If you think this is your game of the year, like I'm not going to say that you're wrong. That's great. It's not my game of the year. My game of the year would be Returnal.
Mine would be the Halo Tech Preview, but anyways, keep going.
I'm not surprised by that. Your game.
That's why my game show awards. Nobody's gonna watch those, so I won't even try.
No, but again, I think the unfortunate part is that, here we are in Psychonauts 2, which I think is a brilliant game. That's the story here, and that's being overshadowed. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
It really is, because that's.
I think that is a good point. I think like sometimes getting caught up in all the things that we don't like, or it is a good story. I mean, Tim Schafer, the guy whose studio almost went under because because the Microsoft canceled this game many years ago. The fact that he come back with the sequel, and it is. How a crowdfunded game could be one of the highest rated games, and it was one of the best games I played this year. Like I said, it doesn't beat the Halo Tech Preview, but other than that, it was way up on my list of games this year. And there isn't a lot of things like that these days. So that is a very cool story that hopefully people get it out of their system. They've thrown up now. They said what they need to say. Focus on some of the things. Because there is some good stuff out there.
We all just agree to give Playground Studios a Denzel award. Partial lifetime achievement may not be the best thing that you've ever done, but it's the best of entire kind of award.
I will say this about Playground. I will say this about them. Due to their studio culture, like they consistently pump out quality when it comes to a racing game with very little time to actually innovate off of the format that they've done. Switching gears, if you look at other studios that have been able to go outside their comfort zone in the genre that they're most well known as and do something just as good in a different genre, I think that they have a very high chance of making Fable be an excellent re-entry to that IP, because it clearly their culture, their studio culture, is the reason why their games are of high quality. And I think if they bring that approach to development to a new game, a new genre, they'll be just fine. We've seen that with Guerrilla. We've seen it with Respawn. That it's the culture of the studio that determines what's capable, and especially if you have a publisher that's willing to just wipe their hands and be like, go make a good game. We're not going to interfere whatsoever. So like that's the difference between EA not touching Respawn and not having forced a Respawn to use Frostbite engine for Jedi Fallen Order, and Square Enix not forcing a games as a service format onto Crystal Dynamics to do the Avengers. Those are that's the difference there, and clearly with the way the approach Xbox Game Studios has right now, with creative freedom and not interfering, very hands-off approach, Playground is going to be able to make this game the way they want to make it.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure Turn 10 gets credit, right, in that heap of praise too, in all the praise we've been putting on Playground. I think
it's
Universal,
their engine. It is
right,
their
exactly.
engine. Yeah.
And I think I don't know for certain, but I know Fable is being built engine. I don't know if it's the old engine.
Tech. Yeah, all we know is it's Forza Tech. We don't know if it's like the new
old or the
engine
new
that Turn 10 is going to use for
Motorsport 8.
Motorsport 8. But I would assume, considering that the game still, like, Motorsport, the next Motorsport is going to be out before the next Forza is. So, not Forza, but Fable. So I would assume that's going to be the updated version of it. I wouldn't see why they would use the old, especially considering they got a whole separate studio that's working on Fable and not just the Forza guys.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, look, gentlemen, great points all around. It's a great conversation. Seeing some interesting dialogue there in the live chat. So,
like usual.
Yeah. But no, I want to thank. First of all, I want to thank everyone on the live chat for hanging out with us. Please hit the like button if you haven't done so already. If you're new, subscribe, hit the like button. Also want to give a big shout out to Eric Jackson, B Money, and Gaming Forte, who weren't able to join us tonight. Big shout out to those gentlemen. And then also to our special guest, OBM, One Bad Mother, Game Logic, and Lemieux 66. So a pleasure, gentlemen. Always enjoy having you on the show and getting your insight on all things gaming. And also want to give a big shout out to my man Slomo Backslap. Slomo, you guys are going to be live tomorrow. Is that correct?
That is correct. We will be live for Damage Per Second podcast, this DPS podcast, on my YouTube channel, Slomo Backslap, tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern. Me and the homie Gaming Forte. We will be discussing our impressions of the Halo Infinite multiplayer beta, Forza, more talk about Forza Horizon 5, and then we're definitely going to get into this video game award stuff. More than likely just arguing over the nominees, because that's going to be, I think I more want to talk about some of these nominations.
You just can't wait for Cyberpunk.
My God. Did they play the game?
Cyberpunk's game of the year, man.
I think that would be a big problem if it actually did get nominated for Game of the Year.
Yeah, that would have been an interesting nomination.
But some of the other the fact that it's got multiple nominations in some of the other categories over other games that I know were better that came out this year in those categories, ridiculous. But we'll come watch us tomorrow. You'll see us get into it.
You know how everyone can solve this problem if they feel like your favorite game was snubbed? Do your own Game Awards show on YouTube.
Right.
There you go.
All right, guys. I'm gonna do my own awards.
You should call them the Mothers.
Something like that. I got tagged. In
Welcome to the Mothers
today.
The Mothers.
I like that name. I got tagged into something similar like that earlier today where someone had tagged me in a bunch of the really good content creators that I
someone said they want to see Metroid Dread win Game of the Year so they could see you have a conniption.
Oh yeah, I definitely.
It's a good game,
but I didn't play it. I don't know. I don't care for Metroid. But no, I got tagged in something earlier. But somebody, it was an interesting idea. I don't think I deserve to be among in the company of the people that were tagged in it. But a community game awards show with people that I guess hosting it or judging it or discussing the games that are fairly even and rational or proven to be that, which I know I am that, but like among the people that were tagged, I'm like, yeah, I got nowhere near as much influence or a platform as those other guys do. So, but I do think that's a very interesting idea. That might be something that might, someone might put together and come to fruition and actually be something that people enjoy.
Yeah.
So.
If anybody wants to do a Gamers Choice Awards and put that up as a Kickstarter, I will support it and work with you as a kind of an open source kind of approach to a game award show.
There we go. We got some movement.
Got some movement. But the people who go in on it, they got to put the elbow grease and the skin in on the game.
That's a great point.
Yeah, that's a great point. But yeah, that's another show. We're definitely running over.
yeah.
That would be interesting because I actually saw a tweet earlier that said that someone wanted a way where if someone votes for a particular game and for a game of the year, that they have to have some kind of proof that they played it.
Yeah, they have to. Yeah.
That'd be
all right, gentlemen. Yeah, that's a good point. All right, what do we get? Big shout out to everyone in the live chat. Thank you to our panel here, and check out DPS Podcast tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Is it on your channel or Forte's? I forgot.
It's my channel.
Your channel tomorrow. Okay. Check it out on Slow-Mo Backslap's channel tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. On that note, if you want to follow our guests, Lemieux66, Game Logic, and OBM, One Bad Mother on Twitter, give those gentlemen a follow. And we'll be back next Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for more gaming-related topics and talk. On that note, we're out.